I'd take a guy that hasn't ever lifted before. I would take him for 8 weeks, any day of the week, over a kid that's got bad motor patterns.
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, Brian, I kind of want to continue with the conversation that we were just having, but for context, for the listeners, let's do a brief origin story. If you guys want a more detailed origin story, there's like 4 or 5 podcasts where he kind of goes all into it.
Yeah.
So we'll start with, you played baseball all the way through college.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So we're going to kind of skip through a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
And then, but at what point was it in college to where strength and conditioning caught your attention?
Yeah. So I did an internship after my 4th year of playing college baseball. So we lifted, really low level. It was just
what was your area of study during college?
Exercise science.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So same thing you mastered in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I went and did an internship at the University of Wisconsin lacrosse, and I met Hal Luther. Hal Luther is now the assistant strength coach for the Buffalo Bills. Became great friends and really changed my perception of what sports performance training was versus just lifting weights. And so that's where I really fell in love with the idea of training athletes, working with athletes, being a coach, being a mentor. And then got to go to the University of North Dakota and get my master's degree there, which was an awesome experience.
Was that 2 years you were there?
Yeah, I was there for 2 years, and as a GA, and you make $3,000 a year, you get schooling for free, and you work with every team.
Well, here's a question I have for because that's kind of the path that strength coaches are going to take.
Yeah.
Right. But there's this other side of that. Like, how do you pay the bills?
Well, we were lucky. We lived at the time I was married. So my wife, who's now my ex-wife, was a teacher. So she actually had a full-time salary and was able to do that. And we lived in student housing. So we paid $200 a month for rent.
Now, the other coaches that you were working with that were assistants or interning, how were they paying the bills?
So one was the head strength coach. So he was a full-time salaried coach. And then they had an assistant strength coach. So they had full-time salaries. And then we had the GAs that, you get your school for free. And then you get that small stipend. So
I want to stay on this for a minute because what's interesting, because we're dealing with this. You've been around for a while, so you've seen this whole thing kind of evolve. We're dealing with this time to where if it's an intern, they want to get paid to be able to do the internship, but everybody that I know, because I'm older, didn't get paid. They volunteered to be able to get the position. But the counter to all that, there's a lot of things that are like first and second order effects of all this.
Right.
The counter to all that is that the coaches have to find the funds, which they don't necessarily have. There's one thing there. The other counter to that is people that have private facilities like you do now have mentorship programs and internship programs they will charge people for, because the school isn't teaching those things. So a lot of the places where you really could learn, they now have to pay to learn. And I think some of that is a second order consequence to they're not getting the free, interns, which they'll see as free labor, but it's education that you're providing, which is kind of worth more than what that labor is, especially when you look at what, I don't know if you do or not, but if you look at what some of the people are charging for their 8-week internship, it could be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, sometimes even more for that, which would have been given at no cost,
right?
To the intern. So it's weird how this, you see.
Oh yeah.
You've seen all this.
I mean, it's evolved so much.
Yeah. So the question I've always had is, for those that we all knew that were doing this, how did they pay their bills outside of that? Because if you're a assistant or even an intern, you're in the weight room 40, 50 hours a week. So when do you even have the opportunity? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys are doing DoorDash. They're doing, Uber Eats at night. They're driving, doing all this other stuff. But if you're an intern at a Division I college, right? You're there when the guys get in the morning. You're there. You're the first one there, right? So you're there at 5 a.m. You're not leaving. You're probably the last person to leave. So you're first in, last out. And you're right. It really straps some of these young people that really want to get into the profession. Because how do they pay for their rent? How do they pay for food? Now, when you're dealing with these schools, like they have the ability to feed the guys. So these guys can eat, right? So you have like a big thing that's taken care of with the food. but you still have to find a place to live. So a lot of these guys are living 4 or 5 guys in an apartment, things like that, just to put, the University of X, Y, and Z on their resume, which is great. Like if you're trying to get hired, you have that on your resume, but you have to really, in my opinion, for an intern, you have to vet what you're getting out of it outside of the name on the resume. Are you being taught? I know for us, our internship process, it's like a grad level course. So the interns, they get on the floor coaching. They get, and it's process by process, week by week by week. We educate them. And then they have a meeting with our internship director. He coordinates all their education. So not only are they getting their, 480 hours required by their school, they're walking away with the ability to be an assistant coach somewhere. And for me as a private gym owner, that's how I want to hire people. Like if you've grown up in our system, you understand our systems and things like that, I would rather hire someone like that than just pick someone off the street.
Well, I think if they looked at it as, because I've had this conversation with several people, if they look at it as just 2 more years of school,
right?
Like, did you work during school? Some did, some didn't. Most of them have the money,
right,
either saved or borrowed or whatever they're going to do to be able to do that. But as soon as they graduate, they don't see that internship as 2 more years of education. They see it as, now I'm getting in the workforce.
Right.
And that's really not what it is. It's that, but I like what you said, you got to vet out, which it should be a little easier now because you can get a hold of other people. Are you just going to set up cones and pick up weights? Or are you going to actually learn anything?
Yeah. Are you flipping the weights so all the M's or the W's or whatever are straight up and down? Or are you actually sitting down with the head strength coach or the assistant strength coach, on a weekly basis and being like, okay, they're going to teach you why we're doing these things.
Well, we haven't got into your years in Wisconsin yet, but we'll stay on this for a second. If it was somebody looking for this, where I'm pausing is there's 2 options. Well, there's always more than 2 options, right. But the one would be go someplace where you're really going to learn the fundamentals, right? Or the other one is you can go to some place that has an established coach, that has an established hierarchy and tree of being able to play somebody. You may not learn much. You may just be the grunt worker. But I don't know which one's going to be better. Long-term, the education is going to be better. Short-term, that one might actually be better because your odds of getting placed are going to be better.
Well, I think then it's that next step, Dave, right? Is like, okay, like let's say I go to the Division I school. Can I say it?
Sure,
let's say I go to Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
You got a pedigree for football there, right? You have Mickey who's there, who's connected across probably the world. If I'm there, am I going to get my next job because of that? And then I think the next step is like, is my next job going to be with someone who is an educator? And I don't know what they do there from education. So I'm just speaking, randomly. But is my next job then with someone who's going to continue to make me better? And I think that's where I see young strength coaches missing the boat. They want to be with the most elaborate program and this, that. But at some point, like for me, when I was an assistant, I wanted to have my own program. So I wanted to run my own show. So what's going to give me the best option at some point to run a program, be a head strength coach? And if it's going to a place like, a Division I school that then is going to place me out to another place where I can continue to develop, that's a great choice. Do I want to fast track my education and learn from someone who's established and a teacher? That's another great way. So really it comes down to, I think, as an intern or a young person, like what are your long-term goals? And most people right now don't think that far ahead.
No.
You know what I mean? No. None of us did either. You know what I mean? And we said, well, you have to have a plan, but none of us really did. We just kind of were like, well, I got to do this. No, I got to do this. So I think it is really important though to look at an internship for us. When we do our internships, we're very grateful that we have these people working. So we don't take them for granted, and we want to give more to them than we're actually getting. So we want to have them walk out the door and be hireable.
Yeah. Well, that's going to speak to the business, and it's going to speak to the school.
Right. It's
going
the
to
tree.
Speak to everything. And I would say most of the top Division I schools have good programs to be able to bring. Not all, they didn't always,
right?
But over the last decade, for sure,
they
have those good programs. Now, when you were Where were you were before Wisconsin again? You just
North
said it.
Dakota.
North
Yep.
Dakota. So when you were there, you wanted to get to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yes.
I wanted to work at Wisconsin. So at the time, John Detman, who was the head strength coach, his wife was married to my head baseball coach's. I'm sorry, how do I say this? His wife's sister was married to my head baseball coach's wife's sister. So they were sisters. So they knew each other. So I was able to introduce myself to John before I went to North Dakota. Um, I think Chris Doyle was an assistant there. So I got to meet Chris. And then I went to North Dakota, and this is where I look at being relentless. This is how I learned how to be relentless. I wanted to work at Wisconsin. I didn't want to stay in North Dakota. I want to be back. My family's from Wisconsin. My at the time wife's family was from Wisconsin. We wanted to be back there, and that was where I wanted to work. I sent John probably 12 resumes in 18 months.
So what did those look like? Because it's
Yeah,
you've been in the position where you're getting those. It can be obnoxious and it can not be
yeah,
obnoxious. So how
yeah.
did you make those so they weren't obnoxious?
Well, first of all, I had to mail them. Right? Well,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't email. I would just send a note, to John and say, "Hey, I know I've sent a resume before. I wanted to update this. I'm now working with the hockey program, and our football program just won, the conference championship. So I'm updating my resume, just checking to see if you have any positions available." And probably 12 resumes were sent in that 2-year time frame, and he called me for a job. I didn't know they had a job open after the 2000 Rose Bowl that they beat Stanford. His top assistant was leaving, and his phone call to me was pretty blunt. He's like, typically I look for people that have applied before. I always go through that, and he goes, I'm going through my stack of resumes, and half of them are yours. So he goes, I think you probably want to work here, and I said I do. And he's like, well, I start interviews. This was a Thursday. He called me at noon. He said, so I start interviews next week. I said, no, I'll be there. I'll be there tomorrow. And so I literally talked to my boss, Paul Chapman at North Dakota, and I said, can I do it? He goes, go. Got in my car at 4 o'clock, drove, got a hotel at Madison, kind of threw together a piecemeal suit, got there, and John was working out when in the morning because they didn't have groups, and he worked out for like 45 minutes while I sat in his office waiting for him, and then sat and interviewed, and like next week I got the job.
How did that feel for you at the time when you were interviewing?
I didn't care. I just honestly, like, I was like, I know he's important, you know what I mean? And I know, where Wisconsin football was. And I was just like, I was happy to be sitting in the office again. And I
Did
was
you do
happy.
any preparing beforehand?
Not really. Not really, because I tried to learn the players that were on the roster. I knew that Brooks Bollinger, who was the starting quarterback, was from North Dakota. So that was also a way for me to say, I kind of know the program a little bit, but not too much because I was going into it knowing that just from my background on what I knew about John, he runs the program, and you're going to basically do it his way. And
So
so
what did you learn while you were in North Dakota?
time management, you know what I mean?
Also,
Time management, because we had freshman football at 6 a.m. And then I had swimming and diving at 7:15, and then I had another group of athletes at 8:30, and then I had to do classes, my own personal
mm,
classes, and then we started football back up, regular football at noon, and then we had football groups going from noon until 3, and then we broke off into our own teams that we were in charge of. So then I was in charge of men's basketball, baseball, um, swimming and diving, and volleyball. So then I would train my athletes from, or the athletes I was in charge of. I hate it when people say my athletes. The athletes I was in charge of from like 3 till 6:30, and then I had night class.
were any of the classes that you were taking having any correspondence with what you were learning in the weight room?
Not really. I think, you learn basic anatomy and physiology. You learn some different structural stuff, but we did a lot of like testing in the lab, and to me, like, it's important. I think it's important to have letters behind your name, but the letters mean nothing if you don't have experience. And I would tell young strength coaches, yeah, it sucks sometimes to go volunteer your time, but every hour of experience is going to add up, and it's going to compound for you in the long term, in the long run.
I used to say, and I think I've changed my opinion on it now because the university costs way more than what it used to in the past, that the only thing those classes really provided me was a better bullshit detector, right? Because you know kind of the basic function on how things work. So
Right.
if something sounds really whack,
Yeah.
if you didn't know that, you might be like, oh yeah. And then you'll lean into it more so than having that first pause, like something
Yeah, this doesn't sound right.
just
Yeah. Yeah. This is
isn't
not right. Yeah.
diving here very
Right.
well. But I don't know if that's worth the cost, that it is now.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's happened to get hired in college, there are certain stipulations. So you have to do it.
You need a master's now, right?
I think it's getting to that point, and either a CSCS or a CSCC, whatever the other. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of a monopoly on how to get into there. But to me, like, you've worked with guys that don't have high school educations or whatnot. Like, it's the experience, it's your knowledge. Like this in here, this is your classroom. And if you take it like that and you learn from every training session, you should take something away from every training session. I didn't really take something away from every class that I sat in.
So how long did it take you to move from there to Wisconsin? Because you said your wife was, at the time, was teaching.
Yeah. We left June 1st. Or I left. I got the job actually on my birthday. I got hired on my birthday. And so I went there and she moved like a couple weeks later.
Was it what you thought it was going to be when you got there?
It was intense.
You gotta elaborate on that one.
It was intense because you're coming off 2 Rose Bowls and the expectations were high, and now they were starting to outreach their recruiting and things like that. And so, I mean, it was like there were high expectations on where the program was going to go. So it was, there was a lot of fear from my end. It was like, oh my God, I don't want to, screw the program up. I don't want to put the wrong number into formulas. And, there was a lot that went into it. So.
What year would that have been when you got there?
2000.
2000. So how was the technology then compared to what we would see now, as far as like GPS and stuff like that?
We didn't have any of it.
Interesting,
Nothing.
right? So you were there for 12, 13 years?
I left June 9th, 2013.
Any coaching changes?
Brett Bielema. So Barry Alvarez, obviously a legendary coach at Wisconsin, was there through 2006. We went to the Capital One Bowl, beat Auburn, and he retired. And then he promoted Brett Bielema, who is now at Illinois. And so it was
a fluid coaching change.
Well, for us.
For you, right?
It was great.
Because a lot of times when there's a coaching change, you're kind of out of a job.
Yeah, you hold on to your ass.
Yes, so you didn't have to run into all that.
No, we didn't. But Brett did make a change in the strength and conditioning department after a year or two. He promoted Ben Herbert to head strength coach, and then John moved into more of a administrative role.
So how did you guys navigate all the incoming technology that was going to start coming your way?
We didn't have that much. I mean, we didn't have the GPS stuff. We didn't have VALD. We didn't have a lot of the force frame. We didn't use a lot of that stuff, to be honest with you. We used Tendos, but other than that, like all the stuff they're using now is like insane. I mean, we use GPS and Catapult with Love Madison, the pro volleyball team I train, but other than that, and VALD, we use VALD a little bit, but other than that, like, no, it was just.
That's interesting because during that time period, Wisconsin was known for strength. Like the line was going to just bull everybody over. Right. And it's just, is it safe to say just old school strength and conditioning? I'll lean into that a little bit more so people don't think it's what.
No, yeah, I think it was just, you get in the weight room and you train. You know what I mean? And we didn't have like it's different now because the high school strength and conditioning is so much better. These guys are walking the door squatting 500 pounds, like legitimately, not like quarter squats, like legitimately. And some of these guys are benching 350, walking the door. We didn't have that. Like Ricky Wagner, who came in as a 265-pound tight end and ended up playing, 7-8 years in the NFL as a right or left tackle. I mean, he put on like 35, 40, 50 pounds. And we had back then you had to develop the kids. Even Joe Thomas, like he was athletic and everything like that, but he still had a lot to develop, in the weight room from a strength standpoint.
Right. So when you say develop, you're talking physically develop,
yes.
Because as far as their sport skills, they wouldn't be there.
No,
if they didn't.
Correct. Right. I mean,
sport skills.
Yeah, you have to be a good football player to play. You have to be really good to play Division I football. really good.
Yes.
I think that, yeah, really good.
So you were working with all sports and then kind of migrated into just football, or was it football the
Wisconsin
whole
was
time?
just football.
The whole time.
I worked with softball just a smidge here and there. And the first year I had softball, I think the whole year, maybe 2 years, it was fun because I had a great group of girls. They worked their tails off. They loved the weight room. But for the most part, I was strictly football.
Were you guys operating more on a block model? Because as we were talking before we started, you have really weird training blocks that are just laid out because of the
Yeah.
way the sport and the season and spring ball is all kind of laid
Yeah.
out. So it's how are you kind of laying the training out for the year?
Yeah. Well, for the first 10 years that I was there, it was more, you have your 8-week program in the winter, you get a break, then you got spring ball. So you have a block there. And then you would have probably 2 or 3 weeks where you could really, where we would really push the envelope before summer. And then you had a month off for the summer. And so we had a nice situation because that's when like summer classes started migrating in like a 3-week window. So then kids would stay on campus for 3 weeks and take an extra class. So you'd have 30 or 40 guys that would come in and optionally come in to train. And then you had your summer. So you had your 7-8 week summer. The winter was more, kind of more iron weight room focus with a little bit more high end speed emphasis back then. And then the summer was, strength, but also like field strength. So a lot of football stuff on the field, pushing sleds, and doing some more positional movement stuff. And then when you got into the season, we broke off developmental kids, which were the kids that got less than 10 snaps, or your red shirts. So you had a red shirt group, developmental kids, and then your 2 deep. And then you ran that through the season.
So you really have, if I'm to look at this is forget Conjugate for a minute, just a block perspective.
Right.
You really only have that 8 weeks in the winter, to the spring where you can really develop strength. And then the other ones are kind of like almost not enough time unless they're staying that extra 3 weeks that you were talking about.
Yeah, I think, like I said.
So how do you guys navigate? You see what I'm saying? How do you navigate that?
I mean, it's pretty tough because you're trying to also navigate through spring ball. You're trying to navigate a lot of different stimulus. And now it's even different, Dave, because now they have like more contact days, things like that. Back then it was, you had 8 hours, from that, end of January through end of March, where they were just lifting and they were just doing speed work and, some station stuff and all that other stuff. Yeah, but we kind of changed that mindset in 2010. Which we had to because, we really needed to continue to foster that O-line mentality, the tight ends and stuff like that. So we changed that mentality. It's a little different than I think a lot of coaches think of, but it worked. I mean, we won 3 Big Ten championships. We went to 3 Rose Bowls.
How do you change the mentality?
So what you see a lot is like the coaches are looking at test variables and things like that. And a lot of coaches will look at from January to March and they'll be like, well, in January, this is where they were. In March, here's where we were. We didn't compare that. We compared March to July to out of season. So we wanted them to keep getting better, not go up. And then we go into the season, we go down, we go up, go down. So like we trained exceptionally hard through spring ball.
Look, I get it. A power bar is a staple of every gym, but what do you do after that? This is Dave Tate from Elite FTS, here to talk to you about specialty bars. Specialty bars are what's going to take your training to the next level. You're probably already familiar with our SS yoke bar, which every gym should have, which he's using there, which provides comfort for the squat, especially if you're a washed up meathead like myself and you can no longer grab a bar, or you have shoulder injuries, or you're just looking for variation in your training. At Elite FTS, we have specialty bars that take care of all your training needs, from an American cambered press bar to fat bars, curl bars. We even have power bars. So head over to elitefts.com, toolbar, bars and weights, or blowout menu, bars and weights.
And I'm
okay. So if I'm to kind of dissect this a little bit, if we're looking at, say you're building out this year training plan, right? Yeah. You can sit down and start from day 1 all the way to the end of the year, which is kind of one way to go about it. Then you're changing the variables, where if you flip that on its head and say, this is where we know we're going to go, but we're going to build out from what we have right now
Right.
to what it will be in a month, and then what it will be in a month. So one's building backwards,
Right.
one's building forward.
Right.
So is that what you mean by flipping the mentality?
I would say we melded them together. Right.
Yeah.
I know where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
Because like my biggest pet peeve is these coaches, these football, high school, college coaches, like we maintain during the season. I believe you can get stronger during the season, even at the Division I level, and we did it. And so it's how do we set their bodies up to be able to handle that in season training, because we can be as strong as we want in March, we can be as strong as we want in May. If we're not strong in November, it doesn't matter, because that's when you win championships. And that's how you have to view it as you're doing your program. So you have to be able to set their bodies up to be able to train in season at a high intensity level, low volume, right? But make sure you keep your strength metrics where they were in July. So our guys in July, if we say we maintain, like if I test you and you test out in end of July and you squat 500 pounds, if I maintain your strength end of November, you squat 500 pounds. That's my belief. And so how we prep them for that is we train them exceptionally hard in the squat rack, in the weight room during spring ball, because you can't lose any games in spring ball. And it teaches the guys to learn how to handle the stress of the weight room and also manage the football stress that they're getting. And so that was a huge switch that we made in 2010, because we kind of split the groups off. Herbs gave me the O-line, the tight ends, the fullbacks, quarterbacks. He was like, you take them how you want, as long as, they're getting better and stuff like that. So checked in with him. And that was like one of the first times, I think, in college football that you started to break groups off. Typically everybody trains at the same time. This was very unique. And, to me, it was almost like a new life. I was like, holy, I get to program my own guys. I get to do this. And so it was a shock the first year we did it, kind of like we were talking about. I mean, the first time we really pushed the envelope with the guys in 2010, the spring game is, a fun thing for all the fans and stuff like that. That's not really a game. The week before in college football is typically where the coaches have a big scrimmage, where it's like full pads. It's like full, Brett, Bielema at the time, let Paul Chris and Dave Dorn basically, coach, so you want to be done. So that's like a 3-hour scrimmage. And our guys knew that going in. Well, we continued to, on Friday, we scrimmaged on Saturday. On Friday, we lifted extremely hard. I think we were doing, 8 sets of 3, 8 sets of 2 in the front squat. I was pushing the front squat because we had other things that I had in mind I wanted to do. And I remember we're getting ready to have that scrimmage. It was like a Friday afternoon, and like Billy Nagy, who played for the Cowboys, and he was a very quiet leader for us. We had 3 O-line captains, John Moffitt, Gabe Karimi, and Bill Nagy, and Bill was kind of the quiet one, but when he spoke, it was like, okay, we better listen. And he took the bar and slammed it into the rack. Like after set 5, I'm like, okay, we got a problem. I shut the music off. I said, what's the problem? And they're like, we have a huge scrimmage. We have this, coming up tomorrow. And I just said, well, here's the deal. We play Ohio State October 16th. They're going to be the number 1 team in the country. We have to beat them. And then the next week, we have to come back and play at Kinnick Stadium at Iowa, where they had, 2 or 3 guys that were first round, picks. I said, so if you want to just go up and down when you want to train, that's how our season's going to be. I said, and we're not prepping for wins against our D-line, even though we had J.J. Watt and guys like that. I said, so what I'm trying to teach you right now is how to be strong and how to be mentally strong when we play those games, and you have to train back to back to back. You can't just beat Ohio State, which we did, and then take the week off and hope we can beat Iowa. You have to, push the envelope. I said, so if you want to go upstairs and foam roll, go ahead and foam roll. Otherwise, we got set 6, and I flipped on. I don't even. It's like a white. Here I go again, and they squatted their tail. I mean, they got after it, and then they took the field, and they felt great, because I think what people don't understand about in-season training is that guys don't get sore from doing heavy doubles. They get sore from doing 5 sets of 6 or 5 sets of 8. No freaking lineman wants to do a set of 8 during the football season. Ever.
They don't want to do it ever.
They don't want to do it ever.
Yeah.
But like in season is like the worst. So like you can get them to do a double or a single in season. They'll get fired up for that. They won't get fired up for sets of 6 and 8 or pushing heavy sleds like during the season. So we kept it straight in the weight room.
Well, you also regressed the weight a little bit because it was a front squat instead of the back
Yeah.
squat. So you're reducing the
Yeah.
workload there as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
What were the key metrics that you were tracking
Yeah.
for the players what did you end up on? Because you were there a long time. So it
Yeah.
may have changed over a period of time because there's going to be key indicators in the weight room, but also on the rubber, turf, and
Right.
field.
For us, it was a bench and a squat. We didn't really get into like heavy deadlifts.
What about speed?
With the guys, the 10-yard start
Okay.
for the linemen. You know what I mean?
Verticals, anything like
Verticals too. Yep.
Okay.
So I mean, your traditional stuff. Like it was meat and potatoes. Like we tested vertical for the lineman. It was a 10-yard start. We kind of got away from running 40s. Bench, squat, and we did clean back then. I don't clean my athletes now, but I had the ability to have guys for 4 or 5 years, so we could teach that. To a level that I felt good about them being able to do the movement. Would I clean them now? Probably not. Because I just think you can get more out of dynamic effort work and things like that.
So what were the movements that you saw had correspondence into those main indicators?
That's a good question. The floor press was great for us. And that's one thing that we look at with our gyms is like one-off exercises. So like the floor press for us, if we could get guys better in the floor press, their bench would go up. As far as the squat, if their front squat went up, their back squat went up. And then other than that, we didn't really have a lot of other things outside of like doing RDLs and things. We were very basic, and I always laugh. I'm like, if I could take what I know now and put it back then, we would have been so much better, so much better. But yeah, I mean, we just focus on meat and potatoes, like you said, old school thought process. We wanted guys stronger.
And what about the running mechanics? Did you work that to be able to help the 10s?
Yeah, I think we did a little bit, but it was more like for me, I looked at how their 10 improved, and I also looked at is their clean improving, is their vertical jump improving, like is their squat improving, and then does that correlate to their 10? And usually it does. I think we know that if you get guys stronger and they can jump higher, they're going to run faster. Same thing. I always also believe if you got guys that can run faster and squat more, they're going to jump higher. So I think there's kind of like a circle there. I'm not the biggest believer in if you can get them to jump higher and run faster, they squat more. I think there's a little bit of like your speed guys want to sell you that. I don't believe that.
Well, with that circle that you're talking about, you have coaches that fall on both ends.
Right.
So you're falling on the end of you just make them stronger. This is going to work.
Right.
The ones on this end are going to say, if you fix all this, maybe this doesn't increase, but the performance on the field will.
For sure.
So it's actually kind of like a figure eight.
I know this. I've never seen a guy where you can directly correlate their 40-yard dash to their performance on the field. I've never seen that. But I also understand that you'd also there's a lot of guys that are going to squat 500 to 600 pounds on the O-line. So is 610 going to make you better than 600? I don't know. I don't know. So I think you have to have benchmark strength numbers for certain positions, like the line, like the D line. But then it also comes down to, can they play the game?
Well, what about the correspondence with fatigue management to the field? Because if they're tired on the field, they still have to make good decisions.
Correct.
Right. So is that a trainable attribute? And if it is, how are you approaching that?
Well, in Wisconsin, it's pretty tough because after a Saturday night game, there's a lot of things that can really help with detraining, and fatigue as far as nightlife. So we educated our guys on sleep, on nutrition. Herbs was incredible with nutrition, working our nutritionists, making sure that we had everything the guys needed. They had, and now what they have is, I mean, the amount of money they invest in recovery, nutrition, and things like that. You kind of had to auto-regulate them a little bit. You kind of had to trust them a little bit on how they felt. I know this. Guys feel a lot better when they know they're doing doubles than when they're doing 5s or 6s. You know what I mean? Especially during the season. Their shoulders don't feel as... I can do a double. I don't know if I can do this. And the other thing that we did, really, especially in season, because that's where that is really important, because out of season, they should be good to go. Unless they're just running around town all night.
Yeah.
But in season is where it's really important. Our in-season program, we did one pressing exercise the whole week, every week, one. It was either a max effort bench or a dynamic effort bench, and we threw med balls. But we did not do extra dumbbell auxiliary work. We did not do overhead pressing. We did a ton of pulling, rowing, same thing with the lower body. We did a ton of posterior chain stuff. So what my philosophy was, especially with the linemen, and Bob Bosted, who's now at Indiana, we had this big argument in his office. Well, we got a bench, we got a bench, we got a bench. I said, well, okay. I said, let's look at the volume of work that we're doing on the field. All your guys do is contact people and punch and punch and punch. So if I had to do like a volume counter, like to try and balance their body, do you want to take away some of the punching drills you do on the field, or do you want to let me just press them heavy, throw some med balls, but do a shit ton of rows and vertical pulls, lat pull downs, seated rows, wide rows, where we can protect their shoulders? I think in 3 years, we may have had one shoulder surgery in those positions that are engaged every single day. And so I think that's another thing that coaches need to think about, especially in season. You need to, Buddy Morris said this, strength training is literally for football players, GPP.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were there when he said
Mm-hmm.
it, right at the thing with the Browns. You're trying to balance the amount of work they're doing on the field by trying to take care of their bodies in the weight room. And so if you can trust that and believe in that, you're still going to get guys stronger during the season.
So during the season, you're kind of defaulting to this minimal dose.
Yeah.
Right. And then out of season, you're trying to build the maximum dose.
Oh, yeah. We would overhead press out of the season. We'd do a lot of dumbbell work. But again, I was able to balance the volume because I know that they're only doing maybe one at the time, because now it's different.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, they were maybe getting together once a week to do like some O-line stuff and drill work and punching and stuff like that. So you can be more aggressive, but you also then have to look at the time of year. The same thing with spring ball. We did a lot less pressing in spring ball because they're practicing 3 times a week.
Would that mean that before that, you're going to be trying to do more than what your base would be?
So like in the winter and then
Yeah,
the summer. Yeah. I mean, you're trying to build that amount of volume. So yeah, there would be days where we do some higher volume stuff. And typically we'd use dumbbells to take a little load off the shoulders. But yeah, you have to be ready for that, because when you hit the ground running, in the fall, like that contact is real. Like, and that's really hard to prep guys for. So you do have to build in volume with it. So you have to be smart, with your training, right? You have to have max effort work. I believe you have to have dynamic work. You have to have speed work, some type of speed work, but then you also have the volume built in so they can withstand, some of the practices that they had to go through 2.5 hours, come back at night, hour and a half. And really you do the best you can, but you know that, I mean, it's like a train wreck. It's like 150 train crashes every practice. And then we have to figure out how to get them to feel better so they can do it again at night.
Mm-hmm. When did you start to embrace, say, the max effort work? And I want to loosely kind of say conjugate, because when I say that, I need to know how the person defines that.
Right.
Right. So how would you define conjugate?
I would just say it's an all-encompassing opportunity to develop athletes. So it hits all the parameters I think athletes need on a weekly basis. So
so training all the motor abilities in one phase.
But year round.
Yes.
So we're all trying to hit it year round. Are we going to have, sometimes we're going to go into a little bit more volume in the main exercises? Yes. Right. I mean, there's still 18 to 21-year-olds. I deal with 12 to 18-year-olds in my gyms. But the same concepts is we want them to lift maximally. We want them to do some type of speed work, whether it's however we're doing it. But then we also need volume, because we have to have armor. It's, when we're talking football and any sport, you have to have some armor on your body. So, and again, that I think the volume creates great joint integrity for these younger athletes and players that are doing collision sports. So for me, conjugate is I look at it as an athlete development model versus, I think a lot of people are going to be like, well, it's powerlifting. Okay, yeah, it works for powerlifters, but it also works for volleyball players. It works for football players. It works for track. You just have to learn how your athletes and what your athletes need. So like we were talking a little bit about giving someone just a program. Like, I don't know if you can do that anymore, because you have to see what your needs are for your athletes. We have 7 gyms. We run conjugate, through our system in our gyms. If you go to my Appleton gym, and you watch if we would consider it a max effort day for the day, and you could like Star Trek, go and superimpose yourself in Menominee Falls, the workouts could be completely different. Same philosophy, but the Appleton gym has athletes that have different needs than the Menominee Falls gym does. And that's where I think Conjugate fits really well with what we do.
Okay. And we'll drill down into that a little bit more here in a
Yeah.
second. But when did you start to fold this, lack of a better word, philosophy into the training that you were doing with the players?
When in 2010. So it was kind of, that was when I was I got to explore, how I wanted to program. And so, we didn't use bands back then. I wish we would have. I think that would have been a huge opportunity for our guys. We just used change and again, back then, that was really what I knew, And so, we had, max effort days on Monday and Friday, and we had dynamic days on Tuesday and Thursday, off day on Wednesday. So we put the dynamic days in the middle to give, 72, 90 hours between max effort, opportunities.
Where were some of the places where you screwed up at the beginning?
Oh, Jesus. How long do we have?
We got as long as you need. The biggest ones that you'll see other people make.
I think, we'll talk about dynamic work because I think it's misconstrued. I think people either go too light or they go too heavy, right? I think when you're dealing with especially male athletes, that's too light. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's supposed to be light. It's supposed to be fast. I think the one thing that I could have done way better at Wisconsin is be better at selecting auxiliaries that fit the needs of what we needed. We were so, John Moffitt called our auxiliaries incidentals. Oh, we got to do those after we squat. They wanted to squat heavy. They wanted to bench heavy. And then it was like, well, wait a minute. We got to do like 4 sets of 8 chest supported rows, and we got to do seated wide rows. And I just want to bench, and sometimes you can, get into that a little bit. But I think for me, if I could have had a better understanding of then, how to transition some of those auxiliaries into some of the things I was seeing, I think could have made the program a lot better. Oh gosh, what else? We would have box squatted more. We did all free squatting back then. I think we would have box squatted more. I think for the linemen, it's great, right? Static to dynamic. That's their sport. So we would have done that more. And I would have rotated bars more, a few more, not as much, as like West Side or what you guys, with rotating bars every week or changing out.
I mean, you got
Not every
30
week.
kids, man.
Yeah.
There's a realistic aspect
Correct.
to all this too.
Right. But like using the safety squat bar,
Yeah.
probably I would have done that more. I think that has been a great addition, like for the volleyball players I train, right? Just it's easier on their shoulders. And in season, that's really the thing that takes the beating for those guys. I think those are the main things that I would, but like, I think people really miss the opportunity to really get stronger in the auxiliary work.
How did you arrive on the weight to use for the way that the easiest way that I can kind of explain Conjugate, the way that you're describing it, is the first place you're going to start is with your squat wave.
Right.
That goes down first. It's 3 weeks, 5 weeks. Who cares? You
Yep.
decide what it's going to be. And then you kind of lay that out. Then you got to figure out what the percentage is going to be from that. The easiest way I know to figure that out is you just take a kid, you have them start squatting
Right.
doubles, and you just keep working the weight up 20 pounds every set.
Yep.
And at a certain weight, if it's too light, it looks way too light.
Right.
At a certain weight, it starts to look like it's supposed to look.
Right.
And then if you keep adding 20 pounds every set, and there's going to come a weight where this is too heavy.
Right.
And then you have a range, right? And it's like, okay, it's going to be from 250 to 330.
Right.
Then you wash that week away. That's gone for good.
Yep.
And then you lay it all out because every kid's different.
Oh yeah.
With percentages too.
Yeah.
So you can lay it out. Like, here, I'm going to go 40 or whatever it's going to be. But then you're going to have to change it for half of the kids because the percentages get weird because every kid's neuromuscular system's developed a little bit differently. Their technique's a little bit different. If their technique gets a little bit better, they're 50 pounds stronger the next week.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, how do you go about figuring out that range that you're going to start with for the squat? Because once the squat's done, everything else can kind of
falls into place.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the hardest part, and it's, I don't know if it's different now. The hardest part is we had basically 3 athletes walking in our door. If you want to take this, you had the athletes that came from a great strength and conditioning program. So their technique was fantastic, right? They could squat, they could bench, they could do all the movements. They had great, hip hinge, all that other stuff. So you had that. Then you had the opposite end of the spectrum with the kids that were just so freaking good They didn't have to train.
Mm-hmm.
So you had that. And then you had the middle range where you had kids that are really good, but they came from a program that kind of let them do whatever they want. So their squat technique was bad. They, all the things that we as technicians look at and you're like, oh my gosh, really? Those were the hardest kids to work with. Like,
we live in some crazy times right now where there's not a day that I don't go on the internet and I see some BS crap about this research study or this research study. This isn't new. I've been in this industry for 4 decades. One thing that's helped me is 8 years ago, the mass research review started and became a godsend. The mass research team are professional researchers that are also meatheads. So they've done this great job of being able to take all these topics and put them into this research review that I get every month. I'm excited to partner with them. I spoke with Eric Helms about this on the podcast. It's simple, it's easy. They're offering a 20% discount to all podcast listeners. The code is elitefts20. When you join, you get the research review, which is going to be sent to you every single month that has 7 to 9 articles in there. The archive, which is 1,500 articles, thousands of videos. Just head over to massresearchreview.com and use the code elitefts20. The link will be in the description.
Mm-hmm. Because now and not only do you have to break them down and reteach them, the frustration that this kid's going to have, because now maybe, his coach said that he squats 315 and like you put 225 on the bar and he buckles, like a, now you have to deal with not only telling the kid, hey, the guy that you worked with for the last 4 years not saying it, but did do you any favors here. So now we have to reteach you because now things are tightened down and you can't even get into the position. So you had to kind of fish those out a little bit first. So once you kind of got the technique set, that's when you could start looking at where these guys are at. Where do they break? How do they break? Is it with like knee cave? Is it low back? Is it all this other stuff? And then you start to build in. But I would agree with you. I didn't really use percentages. Because every guy is so much different. Some guys handle sets of 5 better than, singles or doubles. And that's why I really love the idea is like you either got it or you didn't. Like when we started to really get into things, like when we did our max effort days, you either got it or you didn't. Like a triple, great. Like you could triple 475, I could triple 475. And if we both get it, you could probably bump up and maybe squat 550 and I could squat 505 because I can't handle the weight, and so we really started to auto-regulate the guys a little bit as we went through both max effort, dynamic effort days. And that seemed to work really well. Now I had a smaller amount of kids, but in our gyms, it's the same way, right? We try and adhere to the different percentage, like suggestions that you have for dynamic days and things like that. But, some younger kids can just move the bar faster than other kids.
With the kids that were locked into the poor technique, did you find that usually they're going to be locked in with, say it's usually going to be a closed stance. They're going to be coming up on their toes. The heels are going to be coming up. The bar is going to be too high. And where what I found the easiest way to pivot them is if you change it a lot, like now it's not close, you're going to go a little wider.
Yeah.
And you're going to sit on a bar. So it's a completely different movement. So they don't know, right? Because they're used to squatting 350 and a quarter squat with that shitty stance. Right. Now you're wider, it's like 6 inches wider. You're sitting on something.
Right.
It's a different movement. And then they would get less frustrated.
Right.
Because it was kind of like the equivalent would be a back squat to a front squat.
Right.
Like they don't know that this is terrible.
Right.
Right. And so they're not making did you find that same thing?
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, I wish I would have box squatted more because it's such a great teaching tool. And for especially those kids with tight hips, I mean, you get them on the box for 2 or 3 weeks and they open up. You know what I mean? And the box squat is nice because like, this is where you need to squat to. This is your depth, and so seeing, I still get college kids that come to me and we put them on the box the first week and like the last 3 or 4 inches, it's like a missile that hits. They have no ability to decelerate. And so, I would use the box squat exclusively to reteaching and repatterning. And like you said, Typically with those kids that are struggling, they probably do have a close stance, and that's just, they can handle the weight better or however it feels comfortable. Put them in a wide stance, make them sit to the box, and you can hear like the hips pop, pop, pop.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
They don't know what's good either.
They don't know what they don't
Right.
know.
So if it's 135, they don't care.
Right.
But if you're taking them from the close stance to another close stance and you're trying to fix their technique, good luck.
Right.
Right. But if you just completely like wax it, like do over,
Yeah.
then you can go back to that closer stance in a couple of years, maybe.
How you feel? Yeah.
Yeah. When their strength kind of goes up with that. So as that's were you working in 3-week waves, 5? It's going to depend upon how long you have, right? Because if you have this 8-week phase and then a 3-week phase,
Yeah.
Were you going 2 4-week phases?
As far as
Laying the squat out. So if you have 8 weeks total,
right,
you can't go 3 3 2.
No.
Right. So were you going 4 4?
Yes. Yeah. So it's 4 weeks, 4 weeks. Dynamic work was, we would do triples or doubles. We would rotate back and forth on that.
Okay. So it's an increase in each week, right?
Yep.
Forget the bands and chains for now.
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
It's just kind of learning all that. And then on that, so if that's the dynamic, what did you do for the dynamic bench?
We would chain either bench or close grip. So we would rotate back and forth on that. Is that too heavy, too loud?
No. He's flagging me.
Okay. Yeah. I really like the close grip for the dynamic work, especially for the linemen, because, I could sell that a little bit better as, hey, this is where you play. So we need to be here, even though they couldn't do as much weight. We got a lot of buy-in with that. So,
were you phasing the weight?
yeah. So we would look in season, we would do more. I would check the tendo because again, like the tendo for me, we didn't have, the ability to check, their recovery, their CNS, right? So like when we would do our dynamic weeks, different weeks in the in-season, the tendo was a great guide for me because then I could auto-regulate them. Like if they weren't moving the bar as fast, we would just drop the weight.
But when you're laying it out, are you laying it out with the same 3 weeks as the squat is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That way, because there's less change, right?
Yeah.
So it's, it's this bar for 3 weeks, this bar for 3 weeks, this movement. So it makes things easier.
Like really, Dave, with what we did there versus what we do now, like the dynamic days, like we're more rep based changing. So like 12 doubles or 9, we do 5x5, things like that. It was pretty much all back squat back then when we did it. We didn't do a lot of the things that we're doing now. With the bench, I was able to rotate the grip a little bit more and the reps. So that's
within the same workout or within
that. So every 3 weeks. Okay. So you change it. Yeah. So you change the rep sequence, but we didn't have like the access. Like I would love, like I said, to use a safety squat bar for a 3-week wave, or to do a box squat for a 3-week wave and then go to a free squat, and things like that, because I still think there has to be some free squatting, in athletes training. But that's how I, now looking at where I was to where we are now, that's what I would do now.
So how are you keeping the number of movements that you'll use for those movements? Because you're dealing with beginners, maybe intermediates.
Yep.
When I was at Westside, we're changing every week, but
Correct.
you're dealing with advanced athletes that have been doing these movements for 20 years.
Yeah.
They have to learn the movements.
Yeah.
So what's the max number of movements that you'll rotate through?
Very, very few. Very few. So like, I mean, you're talking about like the bench, the close grip. Like we would do a little bit of wide pressing. But those movements did not change very much. Now, I would probably use like a football bar, for a couple of weeks or things like that. There it was more just straight barbell. You know what I mean?
Would you use that football bar though if it was somebody just coming in?
No, I think if you, as guy, maybe like in a 3-week phase, like in the summer, something like that. And that's the other thing too, is I think people make mistakes like in season to out of season, like whatever you're doing in the summer. And that's how we tailored our in season. Those were the movements we did in season. So if we didn't do it in the summer, we ain't doing it in the in season, because the worst thing you can do, is introduce a new movement to a guy on game week. And then all of a sudden it's a cluster because like you can't figure it out. And then you're wasting training time and things like that.
I think that's where a lot of coaches are screwing up when they're trying to use conjugate with beginners, is they're changing the movements way too often. Yeah. Way too often.
Yeah, for sure.
And because they're still going to make beginner gains throughout this whole thing too. Hell, I don't even know if they need to even waive the weight, for a period of time, because they're going to just get better at the movement pattern.
Right.
which if you're working on somebody's sprint mechanics, you're not going to have them run 90% all the time.
Right.
Right. So outside of those two things there, when you start to come down in that training day,
Yeah.
what are the movements that you're putting, or the muscle groups? What's it look like after the game? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like right now, when we look at what we want to attack, it's the posterior chain. I mean, that is when we're looking at athletes. I mean, that is the biggest discrepancy, right? And especially with, if we're talking football, the male athletes, what do they want to do? They want to bench, they want to curl, they want to shrug. Some of them want to squat, or they want to leg press, so they're all quad dominant. They're all anteriorly rotated. So to me, like a good hip hinge, a reverse hyper, back extensions, training the low back. And it's always funny because I hurt my low back. No, your low back is weak. You're like, doing reverse hypers or doing back extensions, guys get blown up the first couple of weeks. But as they continue to do them and they continue to build strength, that goes away. We had a volleyball girl, did 3 sets of 35 on reverse hypers with 315. But that was her third year of training. She's done them twice a week for 3 years. And I think there's that big fear in college sports, right? The back is like this big, like, injury. We don't want to hurt their back. Well, most football players probably have some pathology in their low back.
Okay, you at that level, yes.
Yeah. With or without training. Squatting is not the like evil thing that's going to ruin every athlete. Like their back does not get hurt from just squatting. So you have to protect the low back. And so like all those exercises I talked about are important. We do a ton of like lying banded leg curls.
Yeah, just to interrupt you for a minute.
Yeah.
The coaches will always be so concerned about like the squats and all that other stuff, but they're not concerned about hitting the fucking sled.
No.
Which is, you want to talk about back compression.
Yeah. Or each other.
yeah. Even more.
well, the other thing too, Dave, is like this, like other sports, like basketball and volleyball, like we see more kids with back issues in those sports than we do with football, because like you and I, like we're going to line up against each other. Your D line, I'm O line. We're going to hit each other. What's going to happen? Yeah, we're going to connect, and one guy's going to win, one guy's going to lose, but our bodies are going to give. We're going to form around each other. If you're a young basketball player and the thing that you're contacting with every day is the ground, that's cement. So your body is going down, and you wonder why, and that's compression. And you wonder why you have 12-year-old athletes with, spondies. It's not from squatting. It's from too much basketball. It's too much landing and things like that. So the whole like pigeonhole, we can't ever squat again. Okay, well, we can do that, but then we got to figure out a way to get them strong, because if they're not doing things that get kids strong, it's only going to get worse the more of your sport that you play.
Sure. I mean, if you're looking at total force.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you used a monolift, you're not even stepping out. Right. So there's zero.
There's that. Yeah.
So all you got is like one step, which might be 2 times body weight plus, plus a pound, compared to, a
Every
vertical or a jump.
Right.
Which is way more than that. I don't know
well,
what it is, but
and the weight room is controlled.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Now, is there risk for injury in the weight room every time you pick a barbell up? Yeah, there is. But it's controlled. You know exactly how many sets, how many reps you have to do. The field of play is not. It's chaotic. And so if you can't do things that are controlled, how are you going to stay, healthy in a chaotic situation when you're playing 6 games on a weekend?
Yeah. So going back to the structure of that training day, the way I would lay it out for a strength athlete is you have the main movement, max effort, dynamic. Then you have what I would call supplemental, which is going to be the heavier stuff you're going to train for 3 or 5. That's going to have a correspondence to what that main thing is.
It's like a builder.
Yeah. Then you're going to have all the accessories that are going to follow. But what I've seen in sport performance, you're going to take that supplemental, push that out, because you don't really have the recovery ability to be able to do that plus the sport. Something's got to go, right? Some people will kick that. Some will kick the accessories, which I think is a little bit more of a risk because there's more movements that you can do there. So is that what you're doing, is you're kind of kicking that supplemental type thing out to have more focus?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, we would.
It's also time too.
Yeah. I mean, like our schools have 40 minutes in school. You know what I mean? And like same thing with the guys that we had in season, like football wise, is, I did a little different. We didn't bring them in as a group. So like, and like, I don't know why I do this to myself, but it's one of those things that's like, I wanted the best results. So from 6 a.m. till 3 p.m. on Monday, And then from 6 in the morning, essentially till about 1 in the afternoon on Tuesday, because we had technically off on Mondays, but guys could choose to come in on, to lift on Monday if they didn't want to lift on Tuesday. Some of our guys, like, the John Moffats of the world, was like, Tuesday's our hardest practice. Damn it, I'm going to lift on Tuesday too, because if it's going to be hard, I want it hard.
So they're trying.
I'm going to take that day off.
Yeah.
So we would have guys in groups of 2 or 3, so I could get really specific with what they needed, in that hour of time. So you had 2 or 3 guys training together for an hour. So then, like, some of the supplemental exercises changed. Like, some of our tight ends, maybe we did a little bit more emphasis on like a single leg movement, like a squat step up variation. With our linemen, maybe it was a little bit more hip hinge variation. But yes, like the like accessories, like the lower, I guess, I don't know, lower, but higher volume stuff, that's your injury prevention. That's balancing your body out. And so you have to maintain that. So something has to give.
What would be the go-to movements that are going to fall in there? Because it's going to be different for each person, but it's kind of the same catch-all.
Yeah. Like as far as like the main supplement.
Yeah. I mean, is it always going to be a hip hinge, or is it always going to be a single leg?
It's going to be one of the two. Yeah,
so
it's going to be one of the two.
And if not, one's going to be on max effort, one's going to be on dynamic.
Yep,
so
and rotate through. You're going to hit it. Yeah, absolutely.
And then what would the rep ranges be in there? What would the volume total?
For the single leg stuff, we stayed like 3 to 5. You know what I mean? So we went pretty heavy. But again, once you start getting in that 5 rep range above that you're going to start looking at some residual soreness. And in season, you don't want to do that. Out of season, we'd go up to like 6 to 8. We'd hit them with a little bit more volume in that. Like the hip hinge stuff, we went anywhere from 3 to 10. In season was lower, out of season was a little bit higher volume, to try and hit that. I'm not a big single leg RDL guy. I think it's a great movement, but I think a lot of kids have a hard time doing it right. So to me, I would rather keep 5 or 6 exercises like in this. So 3 or 4, probably like 3 exercises, single leg, and 2 or 3 hip hinge exercises, and then rotate through. And damn it, I want you to be really good at them.
All right. So you're doing those as a circuit.
Kinda. Yeah. So like if it's out of season, you have your single leg and your hip hinge, so you could go back and forth. In season, like you said, you'd only have one because you just don't have time.
Yeah.
When we would get to the accessories, like the, banded leg curls or the rows, that's where you're doing like a 3 or 4 exercise circuit.
Now, if you were working with somebody independently, right, would you still circuit that, or are you only making those a circuit or a superset or whatever you want to call it because of the time? Because you get what I'm saying? Because
I do.
There's concessions you make because of the time that you have and the athletes you have. But if those weren't limitations, would you do them independently?
Who am I working with?
Like somebody with like an intermediate, like somebody that's not a beginner.
Okay, well here's my trade-off for that. That's circuit work. That's part of your quote unquote, your GPP, your cardio, your conditioning. So we can either run you, or you can do this and continue to do it at a high pace. So what would you rather do? That's yeah. But like with with Rob Havenstein, who I trained for the Rams for years, we never ran. We would do starts, but and he had to do like gassers and all his NFL, never ran. We dragged sleds. We did the GPP circuit. You know what I mean? Where you're hitting 4 or 5 exercises. And it's funny to watch that as well, because we got guys from college programs that would come train with him. That crushes them because they're so used to doing, 3 sets of 10, then 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10. And like when we would say you got 25 banded leg curls, they're like 25. And you're like, yeah.
I just want to take a moment to let you know about our crew. What our crew is, it allows the show to stay independent, and it's the reason why the podcast is still here now. The podcast is free to listen to, but it's not free to produce. It keeps going because of the sales through elitefts, our show sponsors, but more importantly, our crew members. The reason I love this is for many reasons, is it keeps the show independent. So I can pick who I want to speak to. I can pick what topics I want to speak to, and I don't have to be accountable to anybody. I just go off what the crew members want and what the audience wants, and I don't have to deal with all the other bull crap that's associated with the podcast world. In return, what you get with the crew is ad-free episodes that are released a day ahead of time. You get access to our Discord community, which has AMAs, like 60 ebooks. We try to put a new ebook out every single month. Access to our coaching community with form checks, training Q&As. It also gives you invitations to our training retreats that are out here in the gym once or twice a year. 76% of all the people that joined in 2022 are still members now. Right now, you can either go month to month or get 2 months free with an annual plan. Just look for the link in the description, look at the QR code, or search elitefts.com crew and join today. It means a lot.
You know what I mean? And so that to me, I think, is an kind of written rule for us. That's a good way to keep the kids in shape, even though they should be in shape, but it's just another good way to do that without the pounding and running that all these other, like, you're not winning a football championship because you ran 16 110s in July.
How long is it between movements when you're doing that?
Oh, we go bang, bang, bang.
All right. So when you're doing that, is the strength progress being compromised?
No, I don't think so, because it's a little bit more single joint type of stuff, reverse hyper, stuff like that, but single joint, things like that. So it's a little bit more banded work on that stuff, and then some more, higher volume stuff. So I don't think the strength is compromised to the point. And when I say bang, 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 they can get a drink and then do the next one, but it's not like a minute rest.
Now, are you programming? So it's, I guess we're look at blood pressure. You'd have like one high blood pressure movement by then a low blood pressure, then a high blood pressure.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like let's take an upper body day. Okay. Let's take like one of our like dynamic days, for example. Okay. So we're going to do like a 5 exercise, GPP circuit. You got 3 rounds of that. Well, one exercise could be a tricep extension. One exercise could be a row. One exercise could be an ab exercise. One exercise could be something for the shoulders, and then another, rowing exercise. So
the rows are the hardest things in there.
But you're hitting, exercises that are going to be complementary, but you're not doing the same movement in different planes. So that's where I don't think you lose the strength component of that.
Yeah, because you have the easier thing in between.
Yes.
Kind of the harder things, which is important to point out though, because if people are going to try to do this and they're going to put like a heavy chin by a row, then a deadlift, then an RDL. No. It's like, no, man, it's like this, then a push down, this, and then banded good morning.
And something like that we look at is like, I look at push downs as they're functional, but I also look at them as fun. Like the kids like that, right? Because, so it's like something like where they can, something that's a little easier, but it's something that like, especially with like our young boys, they want to look at their arms. Okay, well, so they'll take it seriously. Yeah, they're going to do it anyways.
It's like the curls you're going to have to put in there because they're going to do it anyhow.
We call it arm farm.
Yes. So we'll go through. So with, say the reverse hypers and some of these other movements how are you waiving the effort or the sets and reps throughout this? It may not be a 3-week phase because you're going to stay with those movements maybe for the whole 6 weeks, but they're still, you want them to get better at it. So are you increasing the repetitions, the load?
We'll do both. So like if we look like a 3-week wave, so like we'll do 3 sets of 20, week 2, 3 sets of 25, 3 sets of 30, same weight. So then we would go 3 sets of 20 for 3 weeks, but then you increase, 5% each week. So it's a different, right? We change the stimulus. So it's either the reps or the weight.
And you're keeping the reps relatively high?
Depending on how strong they are, right? I mean, a lot of guys can't do 500 pounds on a reverse hyper. So if I'm looking at their squat as a variable, right, as where their reverse hyper weight should be, I'm going to probably have to stay in that 15 to 25 rep range to get the amount of volume that I want. And so we keep it pretty high for like exercises like that. I guess 15 is high. Well,
I'm looking at it more from technical acuity.
Sure.
Because if it's 15 to 20, you're going to be able to kind of maintain good form. You should.
Yeah.
For all of them, unless they mentally,
they have lose focus.
They lose focus, right? But when you're dealing with that 6 to 8 range, it's as the load increases, you might get one good week, a second good week, then the third week it's gonna start to break down. It's gonna be a little, I call it like muscle fucking it.
Yeah.
Which is okay for a week or so, right? Especially if you know that next week it's gonna go to something else, it's gonna come back down. But you don't want that muscle fucking to go on in the 15 to 20, which a lot of coaches will prescribe the 15 to 20 for that sole reason alone. We want to get more quality reps
Right.
through this, and certain movements are more inclined
Right.
for that. Reverse hyper would suck for 20s though. You have them do 20s on that? Yeah. That's where the push downs go after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, or like calf raises or.
Now, do you phase the reverse hypers from strict form to loose form and schedule?
Yep, we'll do that.
So you program it.
Yep, and we'll band it.
accordingly.
We'll band it too, which the kids love, you know. But yeah, we will let them swing a little bit more, and then we'll go. I mean, we'll go 2-second pause at the top, which, as you know, sucks.
Yeah.
And then back down, and then hold for 2 seconds, and then up for 2. So very similar, like how we switch exercises. We will switch to different variables with the different movements. Like banded leg curls, we probably have 6 different variations that will rotate through: standing, lying, seated. Yeah.
That's because you're using them all the time, right?
Yeah.
And when I was at Westside, the freaking reverse hyper was part of everywhere. It was every time.
4 days a week.
Right? And so you can't. There's got to be strict. There's got to be. There's got to be some variation. Otherwise, you can only put so much weight on for the heavier ones.
Sure.
And man, with the glute ham raise, we had like 35 different variations because that was in it. For me, it was another one that was always in there. So it's, weighted, loaded, med balls, that's up, down.
Yeah.
So
We have, we'll do like the Nordic boards. You know what I mean? We do that a lot with like, especially the younger kids, like just the eccentric lowering on that. We didn't do a lot of glute hams during the season because again, like, especially for the bigger guys, I mean, that was another like soreness, like they would get sore, and that was the last thing I wanted, so we would utilize them in the off season, but not during the season.
What I found with those, if I have somebody that needs them, a way to quantify that, right? Because it may be a lifter that's more quad dominant that really doesn't need that as much as the other. But if somebody that needs it, they're always going to suck at it because it's a body weight movement. But like a push-up, they're going to get good at really fast.
Right.
And so I'll put it as part of the warm-up sequence, like hanging leg raises, glute ham raises and some other shit. And just 2 sets or 2. It doesn't really matter. But over a month, all of a sudden they're doing 15 or 20.
Yeah.
Then you also stick it in the actual training day.
Yeah.
Right. Later in that same workout, but then you start to load it through there.
Yeah.
And usually you got to do it at the right time, right? Because there is going to be that soreness that's going to be able to come through there. But it ends up kind of being like any other body weight movement.
Right.
That once they acquire it, they know it.
Right.
And they get strong at it fast.
Oh, yeah.
Body weight wise. I mean, the scale up after that gets a little more dicey.
Well, I mean, switch to the skill guys, the guys that can do more of like a Russian curl, like on the glute ham machine, where they control down, where you tighten that pad up, where it's like they're on top of the pad. And this is for all skill guys out there. Get really good at that, because the fastest guys I've ever seen are the ones that can dominate that exercise, where they control it down, they hold, and they snap back out.
Well, the other problem with that movement, and the reverse hypers would fall in there as well, is you may only have 2 in a weight room with 50 people.
Right.
So then you got to default to a banded leg curl or something. Is that kind of why those?
Yeah, I think, I think we had 3. So it was, in season, right? We stayed away from it. Out of season, you had 20 guys in there. And that's a movement that you have to watch and coach. And so if it's me and an intern, and we have like, if that was part of our GPP or like our circuit, like I don't want to just stand there for like 15 minutes when when I know that, linemen are going to, if it's something they don't want to do, they're going to maybe shortchange it. So I want to make sure that they're getting the other shit that
you
they
make
need
a really good point, because the glute ham raise can become a back raise real quick.
Yeah.
Just a fucking mess. It's always funny when you catch somebody, then you go correct it. They're doing sets of 15, then you set them up right. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, they do 2. Yeah. Or something.
And it clicks. It's like, oh, okay. And it's like pull-ups, right? I mean, a lot of people will jerk pull-ups so they can't hang all the way down, but just get them really good at 1 or 2. Let them do 1. Like, I mean, some of the pull-up sequences we have, if you can do 2, we'll do like 5 sets of 1.
So what is the best regression you found for that? Because most kids aren't going to be able to do 1.
Yeah, we do isometric holds, where you actually just push them up and they're up there holding.
Have you found that to be the best correspondence with
that
your
eccentric lowers? The big guys, they just don't. I know it's a very important movement, but I would rather spend my time getting them to do lat pulls and things like that they can do that, versus trying to get a 310-pound guy up to hold, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're fighting a different battle with that one. but those two are good. And then waving how they grab the bar. So like if you're doing like iso hold, so like the first week you do like a chin up hold, second week if you can do a neutral hold, the third week like a wide pull up hold, and then kind of rotate through on that. So it's again just changing the stimulus a little bit. Some kids, some kids can do really good with chin ups, some kids can do really good with pull ups. It's just, and then finding, where their weaknesses are. You watch them, like a eccentric lower on a chin up. You can see the kids are here, they're really strong here because they're locked in. Then they get here, and then and they fall out. Okay. So now if we can get them then to bring it down to that spot right before they're going to release, let's hold them there. You know what I mean? And try and build through that.
So what does your max effort movement programming look like
Right now?
Yes.
Like for someone that can handle the max effort program.
Well, let's go beginner first, then we'll move up from there.
Beginner, it's just teach them how to bench.
Okay. So just the repetition method.
Yeah.
All
Let's
right.
teach them how to bench.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, Dave, is like, let's teach them how to bench, but then let's move them to dumbbells. And if we're teaching them how to bench, right, they're not going to have the ability to kind of build strength probably so then let's take them right from the bench with the bar or however we're using, and let's put them in dumbbells, because I've always personally had great results getting stronger with dumbbells. And kids, because again, you have a little balance, a little stability there. Let's then put them in dumbbells and let's get them to get really strong there. And then there tends to be a carryover to when they start to go to the bar again.
Interesting. So you're starting with the bar.
Yeah.
And then pulling off to the dumbbells and then going back to the bar.
That's when we have them on the bar.
Yeah.
So like if you walk in the first day, right, can you do a push-up? You can't do it.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, most kids know.
Most kids can't. So we work on that. Right. And then we start them with dumbbells first. So we get them with dumbbells. We teach them how to floor press. We teach them how to dumbbell press. Once they get good with that, once we feel like they can handle a 45-pound bar or a 25-pound bar, we get them on the bar and, we bring them down. And the rule is they have to pause on their chest and then they have to pause at the top. So it's one independent rep with a pause on the bottom, pause on the top. A lot of kids just, they're like spastic. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, no, bring it down, hold it there, and then press it up. And then as we're doing that, we teach the intent with how you have to press, because that's another thing that's missing, especially with younger athletes. It's just like grab the bar and just kind of, no, you got to grab the bar and you got to, like, if you're going to throw it. So we try and teach that as well as we're continuing to build their strength through the dumbbells.
With the barbell bench, because this is a big thing with kids, is the other issue they have before you can even get into the max effort work is you have to get them to stop pressing the last rep into the J cups, right? Because every time they get it up here, they just want to rack it immediately.
Or taking it off and dropping it to their chest.
Yeah, but it's one of the hardest things to break. So how do you kind of go about
1,001 count
before they rack it?
1,001 count before they rack it. And if they can't figure it out, I count. And we have a rule, like in the gym, like the athletes never win with poor technique. So you get to do it once, we coach you. You get to do it twice, we coach you again. You do it the third time, you get removed from the exercise until you can handle it. And it's that simple. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to put a kid who's 14, and train and wear our stuff and then go to a high school wearing our stuff that doesn't do shit right. And that's really important. And all of our coaches are on board with that. So if you do it wrong, we're going to coach you. If you do it wrong again, we're going to coach you. If you do it wrong the third time in the same working pattern, you obviously aren't getting it. So either you're not listening or your body can't handle it. Either way, you could get hurt. So we're moving you out.
Well, the whole goal of that is to build their base enough so they can actually do the real program, for lack of a better way of defining that.
Yes.
And if that's not built, they can never really do that without making that even worse.
And think about how detrimental that is on your shoulders, pressing here and then arching it back just to get it into the J cup.
Well, for some kids, this could be 6 months or a year before they actually get into that real program.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's hard because if I come into Sports Advantage to train, I'm 13 years old and I've been training for 6 months and like anything, some kids get it right away. You know what I mean? So then you can progress them faster. Some kids don't. You come in at 13 years old and we're best buddies. We play football together. You're getting it. Like you're dialed in like in a month and all of a sudden you're progressing and I'm not. Well, how come he gets to do that and I don't get to do that?
Well, that's kind of crazy though, because if they play sports, like you played baseball, when you start playing baseball at like 10, you weren't hitting for shit for the first year or two.
Yeah.
And you were fine with that. And there might've been some kids that were.
Yeah.
Like the same scenario.
It's the same scenario, but it's just like, it's like a pride thing. Well,
Yeah.
how come he can do like more of the program and I have to do like the beginner stuff? You got to get better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And we try and educate them the best we can, but like that's something that's real with like younger athletes.
So then when they get to that phase where you can start doing max
Yeah.
effort work, what does that look like? How's that unfold?
I mean, we'll rotate through 4 to 6 different pressing exercises. So, and again, the main is going to be with the straight bar.
Is it for 1 week at a time, or do you
Yeah,
go
we'll rotate.
fives, threes, ones?
No, we'll get into max effort work. We'll use 5s and 3s, but once they're pretty good, we'll get singles or doubles with them.
How long do you stay with that movement?
We'll rotate every week.
Every week. Okay.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
But it's again, like, you know, when you look at the movement, right, that could be a chain bench and then like a mini band. It could be a floor press. It could be, a chain and a band. It could be a close grip. So you're really
It's the same.
tweaking.
Yeah.
It's the same movement, but we're tweaking the stimulus a little bit. A little different, right, than completely changing the bar and things like that. We'll change the grip. We'll change a little bit of the stimulus. So it's a lot lower level than what you did, where it's like every week it's like, okay, here's what we got. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So how do you determine if it's 3, 5s, single?
Just kind of where the gym is. You know what I mean? Kind of where the gym is and where the kids are at. We'll go to 5s, but not very often with our kids that are in the program. I mean, they're pretty dialed in on doing doubles and singles if they're at that point. But yeah, with our max effort stuff, we stay kind of in that mode.
Are you having them try to break their record each time they're doing
in that exercise?
Yes.
And so we call it, we want them to leave a rep in the tank. So if a kid beats his record by 5 pounds, they walk away.
All right. So there may actually be another 10, but okay.
Well, and then and this is a salesman's right thing. Okay, he's got another 10 pounds. Well, next time we know that. So next time we can progress. In 6 weeks, that 10 pounds could turn to 15.
It will. It will.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you're in that 90% range, you're checking the box.
And then educating kids, because like you would love for them to break a record every single time. That's just there. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. I mean, very rarely, but it's just, a kid played 5 or 6 baseball games. It's Monday. He's sick, so it's like, okay, then how do we auto-regulate him into a scenario where he feels good, walking away for what he hit, so that's also a coaching, you have to recognize that.
Well, it's a good thing though too, right? Because it can be a wake-up call for that kid.
For sure.
To be able to understand these other things that happen outside the gym play a role.
Well, and attendance.
And it can help you, or does it help you to know where their weak points are?
I think both, right? Because you can see, like, okay, if the kid breaks down, okay, well, there's obviously something that we need to focus on with this athlete or group of athletes. If there's a group of kids that maybe they don't, they either, hit the same weight or they maybe regress a smidge, then that's a great opportunity for the trainer to look at the program. Okay, here's what we did here. We had either they stagnated or there's a slight regression. Why? And what did we have in here? And then from my scenario, it's different than the college scenario because I'm not guaranteed the kids are coming 4 days a week. They might come 2, so then it's like, okay, where are these big rocks that we need to get in there those 2 days to make sure that we're still progressing?
So when you see that breakdown, because there's different angles you can look to address that. You can look technical, you can look physical. I guess you could look mental, but that's probably not going to be the case. Are you looking at what's the default? Because you said you're going to look at the program, which kind of indicates you're going to look at the physical part.
Right.
Or are you looking at the technical part first?
I think we look technique as to where they're breaking down, but then, for us, we're a very conversational, business. It's like, okay, do you have breakfast this morning? What did you have this weekend? Did you have tests at school? So it allows us to learn our kids, because like having 2 or 3 tests during a school day, that's pretty damn stressful for a kid. They don't feel that stress, but the mental stress is, and then you carry it in. Like you've been sitting at a desk for 7-8 hours. You probably didn't sleep very well last night because you were worried about it. You probably haven't eaten very well. And now you're going to come in and try and hit a max effort, exercise. Well, your body's in test mode in school, and now you're trying to turn yourself on. It just, the body doesn't work like that.
Mhm.
So it allows us to then dig deeper with these athletes and then provide education for them. Hey, if you had this, let us know. Like, so we modify. Like, we don't want you to get hurt, so then it allows that conversation piece in there.
Well, from the example I would give from that technical standpoint is they could have missed the rep because they're not keeping the bar stacked.
Yeah.
Their wrist and elbows, maybe
Yeah.
they're over tucking, maybe they're over flaring.
Right.
Maybe they just didn't push hard.
Right.
Maybe they didn't grip the bar
Scared.
hard enough. Right. So it's that with kids, that always seems to be like the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
It's like this was good. Like, look, this was good here, here, and here.
Yep.
Then like, what the fuck did you just do here?
Right.
Like, this is a complete disaster. And then a lot of times they can just repeat it and do it easy.
Yeah.
So
because they've never, like, for some of them, like if it's
they're
a 10,
learning.
if it's a 10-pound bump and they only can bench 100 pounds, that's 10%.
Man. Yeah.
And you're like, well, it's only 110. No, it's for a kid. That's like
40 pounds on
that's like a
400 bench.
that's a 500-pound squatter going to 550.
Yeah.
And so like, that's a big deal. And when they've never, like those marks, like those big marks, like 100 pounds, 225, 315, 400, like there's some anxiety that goes through because they've never done it before. And so you can tell when a kid has anxiety because he starts pressing, and what does he do? He looks, oh my gosh, am I right? Yeah. And then he's, what I mean? So you can tell that mentally there's some anxiety there. And so, the best you can, you gotta, let them know, hey, you got this, why you're ready to go, things like that. But it does take failing every now and then for the kids to understand, hey, I got to do a little bit more, or hey, I got to correct this, or hey, that technical point that this coach was coaching me on 3 weeks ago, that's going to make a big difference because like 5 pounds here, 5 pounds here, hypothetically, if a kid improves 5 pounds on his bench every month, which can happen, that's 60 pounds in a year. That's 240 pounds over the course of a high school career. Like, you're talking about a kid then going from 140 to 400 pounds. I mean, is that realistic? I don't know. But like, if you can just, like the 2.5 pound plate, I think, I don't know if it was you that brought it up or, hey, let's just add this on the bar and hit this. And then next month, let's hit another one. Because that's 30 to 40 pounds in a year. Like, that's astronomical. My son went from squatting 185 as a freshman to 515 as a senior. And how? Because he improved 10 to 15 pounds every 8 weeks. And that was the goal. That was the goal. And the goal was for him to squat 500 when he was a senior. And he did it.
You're being lied to about strength training. I know, because I've been watching this happen for over 40 years, and it's gotten worse, not better. When I got online in the late 90s, the people that were being sold this crap were the same people that I grew up and trained with. Serious lifters, coaches, and people who just wanted to get strong. So I started writing articles and answering questions. My wife, Tracy, set up the business, and we borrowed $1,000 to put up a website and go to work. That was 1998. Elite FTS was never about building a brand. It was about fixing a problem. The equipment, the articles, the coaching, all of it exists because the people who needed the real information deserve better than what they were getting, and they still do now. If you train, if you coach, if you've ever been handed something that didn't work by someone who didn't know what they were talking about, Elite FTS was built for you. You mentioned, and we kind of jumped over it, but I'm going to jump back into it, moving from, because the private sector is different than the public sector.
Yeah.
Right? The way I like to... Leadership's kind of the way, because leadership's like the buzzword when you're a college football coach, right? They have all these books on leadership and shit. And I always kind of joke around and say, well, that works when you can be the authoritarian in your hierarchy that you have here. It doesn't work so well when you have your customer service rep, right, who's working there. But the difference is that customer service rep doesn't have somebody sitting right behind them, waiting for them to go to the bathroom so they can step in and show you how good they are.
Right.
Nor do they have the person behind them,
right,
waiting for them. Nor do they have, your management team recruiting people to put back in there,
right,
to be able to do. So the leadership becomes a whole different type of battle, right?
Yeah.
With that whole thing, it's vastly different. It's not even close to the same. But also working with the athletes is going to be different because they have to show up, especially in Division I. They have to be there if they like it or not.
Right.
Right. Now in the private sector, that's vaporized.
To an extent, because like mom and dad are the ones writing the check.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So sometimes mom and dad want it more than the kids do. And that becomes a very challenging thing because like mom and dad at 13 years old, this kid's a Division I baseball player.
Mhm.
And you're like, the line I get so much. Dad walks in, mom walks in. Hey, I want to get him to the next level. How old is he? 13. Great. Let's get him to have a really good eighth grade season. That's his next level.
Mhm.
We don't skip steps, just like, progression in the weight room. We can't skip a step because you're going to miss something that at some point is going to hinder your performance. And so we just talked to and so then you can start to see, hey, the parent may want this more than the kid because the weight room isn't for everybody. You know what I mean? Like college, some kids don't like the weight room. We talked about that. They just don't want to do it, but they know that they have to because their playing time and their scholarship pretty much is regulated to you need to be at strength and conditioning. You need to be at study hall. And so if you don't follow the rules, you get kicked out. Here it's different. Like mom and dad drop them off and they're 13 years old. They may or may not want to give the effort that mom and dad are paying for. So that becomes how do you engage this athlete so they want to come back? And so the word fun gets thrown around. I'm not a big fan of the word fun. You know what I mean? Fun is winning, fun is PRing, fun is, all that other stuff. How do we make that kid want to come back? And so that becomes like a challenge. So then when you talk about leadership, you have to know your client and you have to know every client because every kid is going to be a little different. You're going to have a volleyball player, a soccer player, a football player. You're going to have a track. You're going to have three softball girls that came together. So they want to kind of be in their group together. So you really, as in the private sector, you have to know your groups. And then also, Dave, you have to know because those groups are going to switch. Like in college football, I knew at 6 a.m. the offensive line trained. So every time they came in and trained together. At 7:30, the receivers and the running backs trained. So you had your your training partners. At Westside, like you had your partners. You trained with them. This is different. Like some of these kids now all of a sudden they got practice, so they come at 6. Well, now there's 5 kids I've never met before. So now I'm uncomfortable. And so you have to there's a lot of different battles that you have to buy, that you have to battle with these kids because there's so much mental stress that these kids are going through now because the expectation is that at 13 they're a Division I player. They want to play in college. They want to do this. It's not realistic. Let's not skip steps. And sometimes the parents are the ones that are pushing it more than the kids are.
As you're saying that, it's what I was thinking is when you're a college strength coach at that level, you're having more touch points with the athlete than anybody else probably in the university outside of their friends.
Yeah.
You're seeing them more. And you're dealing with vastly different demographics from all over the country, especially at the level you were at.
Yeah.
Right. So you're dealing with rich kids, poor kids, you're dealing with everybody, every demographic so your skills are going to be developed
right
at a way higher level. Now they're more adult and they're all there for the same reason. Right. So that kind of helps. But your communication skills are going to have to be developed fast to work.
Right.
Because they may not want to train their first year. But if they're there for 3, they're going to know who you are and they're not going to want to let you, they may still not want to train.
Right.
But they're going to respect you.
Yeah.
Because you're their associate.
You're the person they see.
Yeah. You're in front of their face more than anybody else.
For sure.
Now in the private sector, the demographics are going to be probably pretty close to the same. Because the parents got to be able to afford it and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the location's kind of the same. So a lot of those obstacles are kind of removed. But the one that you just talked about that's introduced into there is the comparison, where they're going to be fighting to try to compare themselves to the people that are better. Mm-hmm. Where I think at the D1 level, they kind of think they're all better. They are the ones, they know they're the ones everybody's comparing themselves to, unless they have a bad day and you got to fix that.
Right.
But this is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. So, and their brains aren't as matured.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's what tricks and advice do you have for coaches that are navigating that? Because you gotta connect with the kid because the kid's going to sell the parent. Right. I mean, that's the main thing. You can have the relationship with the parent all you want, but if the kid's going home every single day and saying, this sucks, I hate this. I hate it.
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to developing relationships. You have to develop a relationship. You have to, the kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah, I mean, that tagline, but that is so true. Like they have to know you care about them. They have to know you want their best interests at heart, even though you have a group of 12. So that's where coaching is so important. You can't take reps off coaching kids. You have to, whether it's good job, great adjustment, hey, we need to fix this, whatever it is, you have to give feedback on a regular basis. And it can't just be in the bench and squat, because you'll start to lose kids on the things that are the most important to them, which is their accessories and their technique and their warm up. Like if you just let the warm up go for 10 minutes, it turns into a shit show because it's the thing they do every single day and they don't value it. Like kids want, they want change. They want different things. That's why, Conjugate's nice, because we get to change all these exercises, even though that's not the only reason we run it. But that's where, if you're not actually actively coaching the warm-up, if you're not actively coaching, their reverse hypers or their banded leg curls or how they foam roll, then it all goes by the wayside and they feel like they're getting ignored. And so if you only coach for 15 minutes, they're going to bench more today. I can't wait. I'm so excited. Great. Well, now they got to move to chest supported rows, which to me as a younger athlete, that's probably more important, And so that's something we really focus on, because if you are continuing to show those kids you care in a movement that is not a testable, then they're going to start to, hey, this is pretty important. Brian or Robert or whoever, one of my, Tyler or Cam, is coaching me on this exercise, and they're watching they're outside when we sled drag outside, and they're telling me, I want you to step here versus step here. Then it becomes important to them.
Well, it's interesting that you use that movement too, because it is a machine and they're kind of locked in. And at that age, they can actually train harder on that with more intent because there's less stability involved. Right. So you can also teach them that skill that they're going to need when that becomes more solid on those main lists. Same with the sled drags. They can work really, really hard on that before they can actually work hard on sprinting,
Right. Yeah.
Because of that. And if you're not there, you're not able to reinforce.
They don't value it. If you're not coaching it, they won't value it. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, go do this because you're this. But then I'm going to go over here and watch the guy squat. What 15-year-old kid is going to be like, oh, that's value? They're not going to value it. So like as a coach, and this is to all our high school coaches that are listening, you better be on your feet during the group. If you're on your phone, like that's the thing I laugh about with some coaches, like you can't be on your phone in the weight room, yet you see all these coaches on their phone. Or, the prototypical one is like the team comes down to lift, and then all of a sudden coach grabs like 3 or 4 kids and they take them to the grease board and they go over a play that they were going to run. So now the coach is just saying right there that now football or the sport is more valuable even than what you're doing right now, whether it's an in-season lift or whatever. So if you want your kids to value the weight room, you better show them how important it is by the attention that you give them.
So when you started in the private sector, it was just you, right? So
I had a business partner. Yep. But it was just me.
So
he was the books guy,
but you're establishing the culture, the coaching, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where we have 6 or 7 now.
We have 7.
So you have 7. So now you have to train coaches to be you, right? So there's a lot of obstacles that come with that, right? First off, there's the business one. You got to go from the operator to the technician, or however they say that. But then you have to ingrain all the things that you're talking about into somebody else, and then be able to walk away from that and know it's going to be done. Yeah. So how did you go about?
I don't think you can ever walk away and know that. You know what I mean? You always have to have a pulse on it. The thing in the private sector is that there's that part of the sales part that I think a lot of trainers struggle with, because it's like, hey, I want to train kids. Well, yeah, we have to figure out ways to bring kids in the door. So being creative with that. But, the educational part of it, is so important. So making sure you're constantly touching bases, because our gyms are not like, in the same city, and even like our Sun Prairie gym and our Middleton gym are still a half hour apart in the Dane County area. Cam runs our Appleton gym. He's 2 hours away. Tyler, Menominee Falls, he's 2 hours away. So I can't just drive there every day and be like, hey, so there has to be a level of trust. You have to empower people. You have to empower them to ask questions. You have to empower them to be vulnerable. Hey, I don't understand that, because a lot of people will just try to make something up on the fly. And so that's something that we're constantly working with. Hey, if you don't know, you got to ask. But the coaching part of it, that is the thing that we stress the most. Like like I said, you cannot let a kid win on technique. And then like with social media, like if you put something that's shitty on social media, guess what? That's going to get shared more than all the good stuff we do because people are going to be like, look what they do over there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you have to have a pulse for how we do things, not just what we do. And I think that is something that's helped us evolve because, how you do anything is how you do everything. That's one of our mottos, but we're always working to make that better.
You mentioned the sales part, which is because referrals are the biggest driver of sales.
Yep.
Right. And the referrals they need to come from the coaches that are on the floor that are working with the athletes to be able to pay attention when somebody says something that could be a flag for a potential referral, which is a whole nother skill set. So you got to have this training skill set, which is vastly important. But there are a lot of other people that would argue that right there is actually more important than this, because without that, you have nobody to train.
Right.
So how do you balance that chasm there?
I mean,
I'm asking because when I was a coordinator of a personal training program, I had trainers underneath me, right? And I would walk by and hear conversations. It'd be like fucking, just chills down my spine because this person just literally said they spent the weekend hanging out with their friends, and it's like you didn't there's like an opening there and they didn't see what it was, but then you feel guilty,
right?
Because
I think the biggest thing, Dave, is that you can never, you have to address it, but you can never address it in front of the kids.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And but I see like a lot of people make why would you, come here, come over here. I had to go through that in my career. It's like, come over here. What are you doing here?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, I don't know, no, fuck it. We're doing it.
Well, you don't want them doing a shitty job of it either.
Right. Exactly. There is
bad.
That, and they know that. Like if it's a point where I feel like a kid, and I think I've done this once or twice in 12 years, where a kid, the coach just isn't paying attention, then I step in. And if you like it or don't like it, I don't give a shit. It's my business.
No, I mean, that's if it's really bad.
That's if it's really bad.
Really
right.
Bad.
But you have those conversations after the group is done. You have to address things. And we, with our interns, that's something we do with our interns. It's like our guys sit down with our interns. Hey, when you said this isn't really what we're looking for here. This is what we're looking for. Do you understand that? Okay. Can you understand why this would be the wrong thing to say, or this would be the wrong mindset? Same thing with the directors. It's like, this kid was over here. Hey, maybe you didn't pay enough attention to him. You have to address him a little more because, like you said, Joey's going to tell Johnny that he's having a great time at Sports Advantage, and mom and dad are going to tell mom and dad the results we're getting, and so the referrals is so important, and it comes back to how you treat the kids. Like if they're enjoying themselves, but they're getting better, and they feel like there's attention on them, you're going to get referrals. You're going to get Google shares. You're going to, you shouldn't have to just ask, hey, can you give me a 5-star review?
Mm-hmm.
Like that should be natural. That should be your job. How well you've done, that should bring them in. So I'm like, you want to get more clients? Get better results with the kids you have in there. And then also like for us, it's like going to watch the kids play every now and then, going to a football game, talking to the mom outside of the gym where they drop them off, be like, just showing up, you just come in, sit and watch the game. And that helps with that.
Now, if we go to the next phase of what your business is doing, you're working with high schools.
Yes.
As consultants, where now you don't have to deal with the sales type aspect.
Right.
It's just the training aspect.
Yeah.
So when you go in to work with a high school, what does that look like?
So,
or I guess what would the audit be?
Right. So to me, the most important thing when we set foot in a high school is there going to be a collaboration here? Or are you looking for us to write programs and then your coaches are just going to take them and do them? Like I want, when we step into a high school, I want, just like we would anywhere else, I want it to be better than when we left if the consulting contract ends. So not only are we going to give you the program, but we're going to make your coaches better. And I can tell right away when I sit in a coaches meeting or whatever within probably 10 minutes on where the problems are going to be. Because we start to introduce different concepts And you've probably sat in these meetings before, and you always got someone that sits there. Well, the problem with that is this. Well, the problem with it, I'm not looking for the freaking problems. Let's solve them right now. Let's solve them. Okay, here's your problem. Here's the solution to that. Well, here's the problem. Well, then you don't want it. You don't want to do this. You just want to tell everyone that you're putting forth the effort for strength and conditioning. Strength and conditioning in the high school is hard. It's hard to run, and it takes time, and it takes committed people. And if you're willing to commit, we have the resources that will make your staff better. But if you like want to say, well, we didn't sit in the original meeting, so we didn't really knew that this was coming in, and we didn't really know what your program was. Hey, yeah, all of you are on our email chain. So if you had something you wanted to talk about, share it with us. But that's really what I want is I want people that want to collaborate and get better and learn, because sport coaches, position coaches fear what they don't know. And a lot of times they don't know the in-depth, what you need to have in-depth to be a good strength and conditioning program, because it's more, well, this is what I did, so this is what we're going to do. Well, that was 20 years ago. Like if I do right now what I did at UW Oshkosh with my players, I'd be out of business, or at our gyms, we'd be out of business in a week. So those are the things that I look for when we sit down. A group that wants to collaboratively make the entire athletic department better, because the way we program our conjugate and our system is for everybody. It's for all athletes. We've had incredible results with the schools that really buy in. And so I'm excited about it. I love it, but it also allows me to be me, because, as you know, like you're going to tell it the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I sit down, if I don't have the contract yet and I feel like it's not going the way I want, I'm just going to tell them, hey, this is straight up the way it is. This is how we're going to do this. And if it doesn't work, I can leave. And I don't feel bad about it, because I don't want to take on a consulting program with people that are just going to show, this is the problem. This is the problem. Well, if we give you the solution and you don't follow it, that's on you. But I think it's going to transcend, because you need good people in weight rooms. You don't just need a coach in a weight room. So you need educated people,
So when you have that first meeting, how often is there that backlash? Because the way I'm kind of picturing this is the athletic director may be coming to you because they're not satisfied with what's going on. And these are the people that are doing what's going on.
Right.
And they may not have been behind the athletic director coming to you in the first place.
Right. It's really everyone is unique. Like we've had the football coach come to us. We've had a basketball coach come to us. We had a volleyball coach come to us. We've had athletic directors. We've had the principals. So really it comes down to, when I get that call or when I get that opportunity, I always say, hey, put all the players in the room. Let's get everybody in the room for the first meeting. So, I can introduce myself. I can tell you how we do things, how we want to do things. You can then share, what your situation is now. Because some schools train during the school year. During the school day. Yes. Yeah. Some are before, some are after, so let's look at that, because we have a model. Our models can fit anything. Okay, so let's look at that. So then it's like, okay, where is it failing?
So then do you have to staff it, or do they staff it?
They staff it. So we do everything. So we program the whole thing in season, out of season. We have a platform called the Coach's Edge, where every exercise is in. So we kind of took like a 3-prong approach, right? We took like the old bigger, faster, stronger idea of programming. Now we have schools that have 40 squat racks, and we have a school that has 5. So we have 13, 14 different schools, all in between. So you're not getting like the old BFS where everybody got the same box squat, clean, blah, blah, blah. It's a completely structured program for your school, for what your scenario is. The second part is all these new apps. These apps where all these training programs are in, all these schools are wanting to get these apps for their kids. Well, you have 30 kids in a weight room and they all have their phone. You're telling me they're looking at the app, or are they on Snapchat? Are they on TikTok? Are they doing that? So we eliminated the phones in the weight room problem, and we gave the coaches the access to the technical aspect of how to coach the exercise, what it should look like. So if I don't know what a Bulgarian split squat is and I'm a track coach running the workout, I can go into the Coach's Edge and bang, 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 click that and go there. And then the last one is education. Because schools don't have the budgets to send their coaches to all these clinics and get educated. And quite honestly, if I'm a volleyball coach and I have $1,000 in my budget, where am I going to go? I'm going to go watch, Matt Ferbiger, who coaches USA Volleyball, and watch him in a seminar on how to be a better volleyball coach. I'm probably not going to go to, a seminar and learn how to be a good strength coach. I'm going to spend money on my sport.
Nor are you going to learn how to be a good strength coach at a seminar in the first place.
Correct. or a good volleyball coach.
Yeah, I mean, in defense, they can't do it in 45 minutes or 60-minute presentation.
No, and no coach is going to, like, the WFCA clinic, which is the second biggest high school football coaches convention in the country outside of Texas, is in Wisconsin. And all the state championship coaches get to go speak. Well, they get the highest attendance because everybody's looking for like the secret sauce.
Yeah.
They're not giving that away. They're going to give their basics.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to, how we run power. Well, it's the same way that this team runs power. It's the same outside of, we coach it like this. So they're going to give you the salad, but they're not putting the T-bone on your plate. So, so we do a weekly message, whether it's on an exercise, whether it's on a coaching cue, and we put that in the coach's edge. And then we do a monthly, like, educational call. So sometimes we've brought, nutritionists in. Sometimes we'll do like mindset. Sometimes we'll just go, here's your summer program. Here's the things you need to think of. So we're constantly educating them as part of their program.
Mm-hmm. What I could see interesting with that is because things trend, throughout the industry. With that monthly touch point, you can also address any of the questions they have that they're getting from the kids about the stuff that they're seeing.
Right.
Right. Because things go phasically in these waves.
Yeah.
Right. And these coaches may not know.
Right.
Because they're football coaches,
right.
They're line coaches, right?
Right.
They're not strength and conditioning coaches. Hey guys, I just wanted to take a moment because we do read the comments, and one of them that keeps popping up more frequently than not is, I can't believe this video doesn't get more views. Take a minute to subscribe, leave a comment, and share. It really does help. So they don't know that, hey, this has come around 5 times before, and it sucked every time it came around, and it's going to suck this time too. Yeah. Right.
I think one of the most unique scenarios is a school we work at De Pere is they actually had, they're really bought in to everything we do. A lot of great questions. They're constantly emailing. We're talking on the phone. They brought me in to talk to their classes and let the kids ask me the questions, because what you find is the coaches are telling the kids probably the same, within 90% of what you and I are going to tell them. But for whatever reasons, because I'm not in the building every single day, it resonates more with the kids. Oh, we are, okay, this is why we use bands. Or, oh, this is why we do X, Y, and Z. So that's another, we'll visit the schools a couple times a year. We'll get to see the kids train. We'll get to meet with the coach and be like, hey, you may want to do this. Dynamic day, you have 30 kids in a weight room, right? You have 10 squat racks. Well, you have 3 kids per rack. And the best you can, you try and pair kids up in groups of 3 with the weight they should be using dynamic, for dynamic work. And then I'm calling it out. Boom. Dave, you're up set 1. Boom. Tyler, you're up set 2. Boom. You're up set 3. Boom. Set 1's back up. So you don't have, so we're educating them on how to run the system without it being a cluster, and so, but again, we're forcing them to coach. Like, you have to coach in order to get the results you want.
So now that I'm listening to all these things that you're doing, and I'm thinking back, you left Wisconsin so you'd have more time with your family. You already learned time management beforehand, but your family's kind of like the Brady Bunch, where you have, 6 kids now?
We do now, yeah.
So there's 6
remarried,
kids,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So you're right back into having no time. So how do you manage your time to be able to do what you wanted to do for the reason why you left Wisconsin in the first place?
For sure. So I left Wisconsin. I was going through a divorce, and so I had to make a choice. Brett Bielema left for Arkansas. Herbert went with him. So I chose to stay at Wisconsin, but also realized I wanted to be a father and knew that there was a trade-off there. And so, resigned from Wisconsin. Is ended or middle of June when Coach Anderson took over. And Wisconsin was great. They wanted me to stay. They did a lot of things to try and keep me to stay, but it was the right time for me to do that. Then it becomes like, when you're talking time management, like, there are certain things as a father you have to do, you have to be at. So those are non-negotiables. You know this too.
Mhm.
There are certain things as your business you have to do. They're
Mhm.
non-negotiables. So sometimes those things fall in the same day. Well, you can choose to not do one, the thing with the business, and the business suffers, or you can choose to get your ass out of bed earlier. You can stay up later, do all the things that need to do. So, for the first couple of years when it was just me and the boys, I had the boys on on Wednesdays and Thursdays and every other weekend. So my Mondays and Tuesdays were stacked with boom, boom, boom. I'm going to meet with this guy. I'm going to meet with this guy. Once Wednesdays came around and I picked the boys up from school, and my boys trained at my gym. So it was nice. I could take
Mhm.
the boys to the gym. They train, they could do their homework. We come home and do that. But now, right now, remarried, with Corey, and now we have 6 kids. Luckily, they're all gone.
That helps.
But we had 6 kids in the house, and the thing that we did, again, from a time management standpoint, is okay, we had her kids on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So Sunday through Tuesday, I was able to get a lot of stuff with the business, but also continue to build my relationship with my wife. Wednesday, Thursday it was a shit show. Like, I mean, you had kids coming and going, you had all this
Mhm.
stuff, but we knew that going in. Weekends were kind of all over the place. But now it comes down to, for me, it's just, I prioritize every single thing in my day on, whether it's my family or the business. And, the work isn't done until the work's done. And some days it's at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Some days it's 10. Some days I'm up at 3 in the morning. But if I didn't have something I loved so much, because I love both of them, right? I love my business. I love what we're providing for kids. I love the education. I love the ability for me to drive out here and talk with you for 2.5, 3 hours, however long we're going to go today. I love that because strength and conditioning has given me so much. It's given me opportunities to take my kids to Disney World. It's given my kids opportunities to take my kids to Rose Bowl games. It's introduced me to families that, a family that I trained their kids for years. I get to go to Packer games with them. So this profession has given me so much that if I don't give back to it, I feel like I'm disservicing what I was able to get. My family, there's nothing that comes ahead of my family. And now that they're all spread out, you have to find ways to connect. My 3 boys, we do a FaceTime every Sunday. And that's like clockwork. It's like half hour, 45 minutes. Tell me about your day. And I just let them talk, you know what I mean? Because they're not around. And so it really comes down to, you have to have the discipline to prioritize all the things that are important to you.
Well, I think the difference is, first off, the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Like there's probably some days you're like, man, I wish I was back.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to do that.
Yeah.
But when you're in that private sector, you can move a lot of the things that you have to do to doing it at home. Right. You're going to work more hours
right.
in the private sector than you ever did in the public sector. Even though strength coaches work ridiculous hours.
Right.
It's still more. And
for sure.
It's true because you do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if 30% of it can be done at your desk or on your phone, you're working all day.
Right.
But at least you can choose the location.
Yep.
Now you have brick and mortars, which you still have to be there, but you don't have to be there all 20 hours
right.
of the day, but you have to be connected all
the time.
All the time, which is the trade-off is you can be where you want to be, but you're still kind of on the clock.
Right. And I think the other thing too is like being a business owner, like your phone is never off limits.
Mm-hmm.
And so 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, you could get a call from a parent. You could get a text message from a parent. You can get an email, when you're at Wisconsin, that kind of good, you know what I mean? Unless you had a coach that was like, I need to talk to you tomorrow. You left. You're kind of done. You know what I mean? You may take some stuff home, like test results, add, stuff that you can do at home, similar, but you were able to walk away and shut it off. Now, the flip side to that is Saturday afternoon, if you get your ass kicked, that doesn't get shut off. That doesn't get shut off. So you can't, like for me, I couldn't go enjoy my time with my family or my friends because of what I knew was coming Sunday for meetings. And like, we just got beat by this team. And, so there's that trade-off. You know what I mean? You can shut a lot of it off, but if you're getting your ass kicked on the field, and like I think everybody knows, You know, it runs downhill. So the head football coach is going to look at the coordinators. Coordinators are going to look at the position coaches. And the position coaches, man, the first thing they're going to look is the strength coach. Like, we're not strong enough. We're not doing this. We have too many injuries on your injury report. So when you're not, and we didn't have to deal with that very often because we only missed a bowl game one time in 13 years. But that was hell. That sucked because like it was like 3 weeks in December that you're used to prepping for a bowl trip, and you're used to like, man, you got to train the guys 4 days a week. And then it was like everybody was on edge. And so there's good and bad. You know what I mean? There's good and bad with it.
What would you tell yourself? Because it's not that far removed with I guess kind of is, with the private sector. What did you not know going into it that you wish you did know?
A lot of the business stuff.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is from what I've seen, because I've been around 40 years, every coach is going to end up in the private sector. I don't care if they're in the public sector or not, only a small handful are going to stay in there the whole time.
Right.
Now, they may leave and go back.
Right.
Right. But at some point, they're all going to be there.
I would say that when it comes down to it, a lot of people are going to look at your reputation, what you've done. A lot of people don't give a shit. They want the thing that is going to be most enticing to them right now in the private sector. So like for us, we get labeled a lot of times, all you guys do is lift weights. You know, those guys that are jumping 40 inches at the WFCA combine, that was more than just weightlifting. That, you know what I mean? And so like perception, unfortunately, is reality in the private sector. And a lot of times you're going to run into a 25-year-old that can make a great video that's going to entice kids, no matter if they can train or if they can't train, no matter if they're a good trainer, if they're a good leader or not. And you're going to always battle that, no matter if you were the strength coach at Oklahoma, USC, Wisconsin. It comes down to there's a lot more that goes into it in the private sector than just where you worked before. You know what I mean?
I can see that.
Because we're seeing that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's places like tidal tanks and treadmills. You know, that's all you see on there. It's just, but we do sports specific training. We're hockey training.
Well, it's weird too, because there's people that will leverage their internship at a Big Ten school.
For sure.
And say that they were a coach at.
I coached this guy and this guy and this guy, when essentially all you did is you picked up his towel and put away his dumbbells.
Yes. So you're kind of competing with that.
For sure.
So I think over a period of time that may have meant something where now it doesn't, because that's happened so many times.
For sure.
That people have kind of become a little calloused
to
it. But are you also dealing with the conjugate thing? Because they're going to see conjugate and then they're going to think West Side, they're going to think powerlifting.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's not.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing. But for me, I look at it, you know, I see both sides of that. I lean into that. I'm like, yeah, we're going to develop your kids. We're going to get them stronger. That is our primary focus on your kids, because we know that if we get them stronger, all the other variables are going to help take care of themselves based on what we do, right? You're not just going to jump higher just because you squat more. At some point, so you're going to have to do some different variables in there. We have all that, but we looked at it a couple of years ago, and it was like, you know, you have all these speed people, and you know all this other stuff, and you know the funniest thing is like these combine guys. You know, you have these combine guys that take credit for a kid running, you know, a 4.2. because they trained him for 5 weeks. What about the college strength coach that trained him for 5 years? You know what I mean? And so like, it's become like this marketing chest puffing. And it just is one of those things where, so we lean into it. You know what I mean? And I know, just like probably, you know, in some different things in your business, we're not going to get everybody. But I don't want to be for everybody. I want to be for the people that want to be involved in our culture, do the things that we want to do. And, you know, are we selling sports specific training? No. So will we lose probably a few clients? Maybe. But I don't think those clients are educated at the level they need to be. Has
it been a little less with the rebranding that they've done, Westside's done since Louis' passing? Because from the outsider looking in, it looks like the perception has been more sport oriented from the branding I see.
Right.
But even from the coaches that I'm speaking to,
right,
are seeing that is what it is now
Right.
instead of what it was then.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do, because I'm involved in that,
Yeah.
with the pathway and the coach's education, which is really something that think needs to happen, is right. Louis' legacy was the powerlifters,
Mhm.
and they've got the legacy gym, and all those things dedicated to that, and so the powerlifting club per se, does not exist, but they still have the ability to do the powerlifting as far as like with Burley and,
Mhm.
some of the other stuff like that. But now, so now they have the other gym that has, the lacrosse players, the jiu-jitsu fighters and things like that. So I think it actually, in my opinion, is beneficial for us because it's showing that this system can work with athletes.
Well, I think it's doing two things. I think it's working for one.
Yeah.
Right. On the other side, because I hear from all the West Side old heads.
Sure.
Right. So they don't like the whole branding thing of what it is.
Right.
But I'll repeat back to them when Louis always was very adamant, when he dies, West Side dies.
Yeah.
So when he dies, West Side powerlifting died.
Yeah.
That's what he would have wanted.
Right.
Right. 100. Anybody that knows him knows this 100%.
Right.
100%. And that's what happened.
Right.
That's kind of, I believe that's what he laid out.
Yep.
Right. So I respect that because that's honoring what he would have wanted.
Right.
Right. At the same time, it's building that perception away from what that was.
Right.
I dealt with all that.
Yeah.
Coming up through, and it was ferocious.
Right.
What you'd have to deal with. It was also kind of fucked up too, because you'd have a lot of coaches that said that they used it, but they really didn't.
Right.
Just to be able to speak to somebody that was kind of around it.
Right.
And it's like, well, this isn't really what you do, but,
Right.
And it's kind of cleared that path.
Yeah.
To be able to have that, but it also gets weird because that's why I asked how you define conjugate.
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't know. Right. There's many different variations of what that is.
Right.
Right. And the actual definition is just a variation of a movement.
Right.
Right. But it's really concurrent.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you get down into sometimes I'll talk to
people. You get
people,
in the weeds and you're like,
I get in the weeds. I need to know who I'm talking to.
Right.
Right. Because then it will be a concurrent thing, but you can't say it's not this other thing because that's what people believe, because that's what it's been laid out for all this period of time. But then there's also segments where it's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's none of that. You're doing a block model and you're just kind of.
And I think too, that's really, just from like, being able to do the seminar tomorrow, the football seminar that I'm doing at Westside. And then like the pathway and some of the coaches that now we're going to be educators. It's how are we using it in the field? Like, well, how is Laura using it? How is Mac? How am I using it? And because like you say, there's all these people across the world. Well, I do conjugate. And you look at it and you're like, and so I think what they really want to do is start to bring in that education. I think Westside has always been a beacon for education, right? I think that's maybe one of the greatest things that Lou was able to do, right? And I never met Louis, so I don't want to like get spears shot at me or anything like that. But the education, and with and then taking now with some of the other sports, in the newer gym, still respecting the powerlifting, the club that you guys were all a part of, and really, that's a respected area. Come see it. This is what it was like. But in the new gym now, it's an opportunity to look at some of these other sports and look at how conjugate training for athletes can work and how it is beneficial for them, whether it's a 3-day model or a 4-day model. And so I really like the direction that it's going, because I think it's going to do two things, right? It's going to show some of these coaches that are like stuck in it. Like I can go on linear periodization and why I would never do it again outside of maybe like a 6-week block to start a kid and then never touch it again for so many different reasons. But the education with a lot of things now with the, some of the things in the athletes, I think is going to bring to light that this isn't just a powerlifting thing. This is an athlete thing, but it's also the education for coaches, because I think a lot of times people pick up, the book of methods and they're like, well, I read all the books and the books are great. But like we said, like, an hour ago, like this is your classroom, right? When you were at Westside, that was your classroom. You learned as you went, right? I mean, you guys experimented and things like that. And so I really like the direction that it's headed.
Well, at its core, it's a template that's very fluid.
Yes.
Right. And when you try to make that not that,
Yeah.
right, then it becomes whatever brand somebody wants to stick on it, but it also becomes very limited. And the template at its very core is not that complicated.
It isn't. And that's the other thing too. It's just like, yes, there's a lot that can go into it, but the foundation is still your big rocks, and it's right there. Like, and it's not that difficult. You know what I mean? But you also, I think one of the hardest, like strength coaches, and I had a good conversation this morning with a strength coach. Like every strength coach to a certain degree has a little bit of an ego, right? We all want our program is the best. You know what I mean? And so instead of taking like the template that's laid out there, whether it's, you know, a 3-day or a 4-day, and like taking it and being like, okay, this is how I can take this template and put it into my setting. That's what we do. We take the templates, we take the education, we put it into what we can do with a 12-year-old or an 18-year-old. They want to put their own spin on it. Well, we do this, but we're going to do, you know, 5 sets of 8 instead of, you know, we're going to do 3 sets of 8 speed work. And you're like, that's not what it is. Like, don't try and like manage it. Take the resources and use it.
Well, and this is where I think the internet is, and I'm not the old guy that's going to bash the internet.
Right.
I think people need to see the internet, social media for what it is.
Yeah.
Is listen to the people that are actually doing it, that are in the gyms. They may not have the biggest following, right? And how can I explain this? If I was to explain this, let's just forget about training and talk about entrepreneurship, like business owners. London, Ohio is a very small town. There's 10,000 people. There's 10,000 people in this town. In this town, there's close to 200 brick and mortar businesses.
Okay.
All right. When you just deal with people who are contractors that have other businesses, it might be close to 900 or 1,000. Okay. So we got 1,000 businesses.
For 10,000 people.
For 10,000 people. So 10% of the people are running a business. Out of all those businesses, they're all paying their bills. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in business. Right. Some are suffering, some are thriving, right? But most of them are getting the job done.
Right.
How many of them are online talking about entrepreneurship? Probably zero.
Right.
So who do you want to learn from when you want to build a business? Do you want to learn from the person that's on Main Street that's been there for 15 years? Or do you want to learn from the guy that's got this glitzy fucking reel on Instagram talking about how to 10x your business? You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the real world. Like when you look at the real world, there's strength and conditioning coaches getting the jobs done and gyms all over the place that have been getting the job done for 30 years, 20,
Correct.
30 years. And they're doing the work and the kids are getting better.
Right.
You don't know who they are because they're doing the work and they're not putting the stuff out there. The people that are putting stuff out there aren't doing the work. So if you want to learn how to do the work, go to the people that are actually doing the work. If I want to learn how to fucking run the business,
right,
I'm going to find other people. There's a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
You know, locally to be able to say, hey, look, how do I
help me with this problem? Yeah.
And that's right down the street, which blows my mind. Like it's right down the street, but instead of going right down the street, I'm going to pay some slapdick $5,000 to go to a seminar that doesn't know shit about business.
Yeah, they're selling life coaching.
They know how to sell coaching.
I'm 25 years old. I'm going to sell you, Dave. I'm going to be your life coach.
Yes. So they're selling coaching, but not coaching.
Right.
Right. That's two different things.
Right.
Like if you're going to sell how to program athletes, it's different than programming athletes. Right. So you want to find the people that are actually doing, you get what I'm saying?
Oh, I do.
And this is true for the kids that will aspire to be like other people they see on Instagram. You got a whole gym full of kids.
Yeah.
There's 7 gyms. So let's say you got 800 kids. Out of those 800 kids, a lot of them are starting and kicking all kinds of ass.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who they are. They play against them. They're going to get their ass kicked.
Right.
They don't have a big following on Instagram. They may be kicking the ass of the person that does.
Right.
So who do you want to learn from?
Correct.
The kid that's kicking ass or the kid that looks like he's kicking ass that's eating dirt every game?
Well, and I think, you know, when you start to look at all this, like I've been very fortunate because like we don't have like great following. We have a couple thousand followers for each gym. I have a couple thousand followers on my Instagram. But because like what we put out is good and it looks the way it's supposed to look, we get recognized from people that have been in the profession. Man, that stuff looks really, you guys are doing a great job. You're doing a great job. You know, but it's not glitzy. It's not, you know, flashy, you know, in any way. It doesn't have, you know, upside down, you know, blah, you know, I always laugh like people that create these exercises that have 6 names to them. the inverted upside down, perpendicular, single arm, double leg, inverted row. I mean, like I need 2 lines just to put the whole exercise in. It comes down to coach your kids, do the shit right, be transparent with what you're doing, and hold people accountable to standards. So in other words, like if you tell a kid he squats 315, it better be a 315-pound squat. And we, whether we have the best business or not, I can put my head down because at night when I go to sleep, to know that we're doing the right things by the kids, for the kids, and our integrity is still very high with what we do. Do we want to everybody wants to make more money, right? I mean, yeah. Do I want to open 5 more gyms? Yeah. Will we someday? Hopefully. But it just still comes down to doing the shit the right way and making sure that the kids are doing it the right way and not trying to, pick the goofiest 5 exercises to share for 1.5 seconds or less because the algorithm then shifts and you can get, show the kids doing the stuff the right way, period. And do things the right way. Yeah.
No, wait, it's out of 2,000 followers, you only need 50 people to actually join, right? So
correct.
What means more, the parent that comes in that says, "Hey man, thanks, you completely changed my kid," or a DM that says, "Great post, dude."
Yeah. and trust me, we get a lot more of the first and the second because we're not flashy. Like I don't have like a social media director. I don't, all of our gym directors make all their social media. Every now and then I'll hire someone to do something with Joe Thomas or, some of our pro athletes, and stuff like that to create some buzz. Our directors make every reel they do. They do it on their own. So it's not like, that's comes back to who we are. We're personable people. You're going to know who we are. And yes, we've gotten the letters that you get from a mom or a dad. And it's great to get the Division I scholarship, or I got a text the other day that, a kid that was in our baseball program, first team all-state pitcher. So I got that. So obviously that's great. The best messages you get is from parents and when they talk about the confidence of their kid, that they've been with us for 3 years and now they feel confident to actually, walk into a school by themselves. They feel confident to do all these other things that they didn't like going out. They were introverted kids. Now they have, they're able to build friendships and stuff like that. That's the shit that really matters. Like, because the Division I kids, they're going to go, hopefully they do well. But like the 90% of our kids, when they're 18, when they leave us, are they going to be a contributing member to society? And if we've done that, we've done our job.
Well, that's huge because that's the difference between them going in confident to a job interview or not. Right.
So and they understand what accountability is. They understand what taking ownership for your actions. Like if you skip a rep, then what is the, what are the results of that? They're consistent. They come in on a daily basis. We talk about relentless effort, right? It's never okay to give less than 100% when it's 100% your choice. Like your effort is your choice. Your attitude is your choice. And we can teach kids that when they leave, they're not just going to be 18 or 22-year-olds that are gaming for 5 hours. They're actually going to be looking for ways to improve society and their community and either give back or go do something they love and then continue to get promoted because they're just working harder than everybody else.
Well, that's the main role of a strength coach.
Correct.
That is strength.
Yeah. Right? Work hard.
That's strength.
Work hard.
Yes, yeah. That's strength. Any other topics you wanted to go over I didn't bring up?
I don't think so.
What's the best way people can find you?
My Instagram, Brian Bott, at BrianBott23. My Twitter is at 23botter, and then our website, sportsadvantage.com.
We'll put all the links.
EDGE. Yeah.
We'll put all the links.
It's been amazing. Yeah.
Any final thoughts you have?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're, for me, these are surreal moments. And I don't just say that because you're in front of me. I say that because people like you, other people in the profession that allow, younger coaches like me. Well, I don't know how much younger.
Wait a minute.
Maybe a year.
Out of all respect.
Yeah. Just coaches to come and gain knowledge and talk strength. We need more of that in this profession. We don't need people that are hibernating in their own hole. we need to continue to grow the profession. And so like my ability, like driving 2.5 hours was like an easy drive, Dave, because like we need more of this. We need more people communicating together and working together versus like being, standoffish. And so like I'm blessed to be able to go run a seminar at Westside Barbell tomorrow. Meeting guys like Zach Evanesh, who I get, have become friends with. Just I can go on and on, but to me, I'm a strength and conditioning junkie, and like for me, this has been incredible. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
We're done.
awesome.